Great Tribal Chief. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Lile used to compose a few rabbits and then roast them to eat, but accidentally hunted down a big red deer, which was somewhat unexpected by the stone bear. However, when the big red deer was dragged back to the tribe by 4 people, the whole tribe became a sensation. Looking at those excited faces, Shi Xiong suddenly felt that it was pretty good to come to this age. In the distance, the fast horse, the hard bones and the rabbit mouth were enthusiastically talking to the tribe about the process of hunting this big red deer. The tribe who heard it all looked at the stone bear with a kind of admiration and petting eyes. The eyes were distinct. I was looking at my own children who became heroes of the tribe. From these simple faces, Shi Xiong can clearly feel a taste of home. This feeling can only be produced when he comes home to face his parents in his previous life. After more than 200 years of unknowingly drifting back, Shi Xiong only felt that his heart hurts badly. "What's wrong? How do you look like you are upset?" Jiao Niu's slightly hoarse voice rang behind him. Shi Xiong turned his head and found that Jiao Niu was very haggard after not seeing him for 2 days. Shi Xiong shook his head. "Nothing. Just seeing these happy tribesmen reminds me of our tribes who have returned to the embrace of Mother Earth. We can't even hold a funeral for them." Jiao Niu was taken aback, then lowered his head. In the battle that day, his 3 wives, 2 sons and 2 daughters all died under the butcher knife of the Chikasha. The silence lasted for a long time between the 2 people. In the end, Jiao Niu broke the sad silence with a loud voice. "Silly brain. Oh no, Dali Zhong, Lile's injuries are getting worse and worse. Seeing people is going to die. Now several people in the Gaoshu tribe have been staring at me, afraid that I will take Gaoshu. The position of the leader of the tribe has been taken away. I don't have this thought, but their attitude bothers me a lot. I wonder if you can tell Kabulu about the priest, so that the people of the High Tree tribe don't treat us like this." Shi Xiong looked at Jiao Niu and shook his head slightly and said, "Uncle, if you really don't have that kind of thought, don't always go to Lile. At this critical moment, the more you move forward, the easier it is to trigger the prevention of those in the High Tree tribe. Uncle, the best way now is to do nothing. Stay in your own wooden house honestly, or go out hunting with the hunting group. This idea will make you better than you. I know better." Jiao Niu's face was a little red. He opened his mouth to say something, but when he saw Shi Xiong's clear eyes, he finally sighed helplessly. "Well, I will do as you said." Shi Xiong nodded, and said sincerely, "Uncle, we are no longer what we used to be. We are now the people under the fence. We can't reach out or do many things. We need only 2 words now, that is stable." Jiao Niu nodded silently, did not say anything, turned and left here. The huge red deer was quickly broken down by the excited tribe into fist-sized pieces of meat. Antlers and bones were all left behind. These are all good materials for building bone spears and arrows. The deer skin was also completely pulled off. Such a deer skin can be exchanged for a large bag of salt or a large iron pot on the side of Vasiku. The bonfire was quickly lit, and some of the cut venison was put into a large iron pot and started to simmer, while others were worn on the branches and began to roast, and the rich aroma soon came out. A group of bare-ass little guys screamed and ran wildly around the campfire. The ghost knows why these little guys have so much energy. A group of women gathered around the bonfire to take care of the iron pot and constantly flipped the branches on the bonfire to make the venison roast more evenly on the branches. The ticking oil was constantly dripping in the bonfire below under the high-temperature scorching, splashing a ball of bright firelight, and everyone's face was full of smiles. For them, being able to eat a rich meal of meat is a gift from many gods. Rabbit's mouth seems to have had a dispute with a member of the tribe over there. It is a burly man with a lot of tattoos on his body and looks very vicious. But the rabbit mouth, who has always been timid and honest, looked extra bold at this time. He blushed and quarreled with the big guy with a thick neck. It wasn't until the rabbit's mouth pointed at the stone bear standing in the distance that the burly big guy suddenly realized it, nodded like, and personally handed the rabbit's mouth 2 skewers of roasted venison. The rabbit's mouth grinned and bowed slightly to the big man, and then he took the 2 big scary skewers, meat skewers, ran over to Shi Xiong. "Dolly Bear, here you are. This is what I want to come over for you." The rabbit's mouth looked very excited. Only 13 years old this year, he is exceptionally weak, just like a teenage boy. Shi Xiong took one of them, smiled and patted the shoulder of the rabbit's mouth and said, "I'll eat 1 skewer and you can eat the rest." The rabbit's mouth was a little dazed, but then he nodded tremblingly. "These 2 strings of meat are fist-sized pieces of meat, and 3 pieces of meat are pierced on a wooden stick thick with a thumb." Shi Xiong took a bite, nodded slightly, but then frowned slightly. "Ishikama likes to eat meat, but the mouth is heavier. There is no cumin, which is a magic ingredient for grilling, so it is somewhat lighter for Ishikama. However, venison with salt sprinkled on it is really good, especially since this skewer of meat should be the most essential part of the loin, so it tastes pretty good." I saw people in the tribe joking and laughing happily around the bonfire. Even if it was not a meal at this time, being able to eat meat happily still made everyone feel very happy. Shi Xiong even saw leader Li Lei being lifted out with a smile on his face. Seeing Shi Xiong standing here, Li Lei motioned to the 2 big men beside him to carry him over. Shi Xiong stroked his chest with his left hand and bowed slightly. Although Li Lei is dying now, he is now the leader of the tribe, and the necessary respect is still necessary. "I heard the Kabul priest said that you are going to prepare for iron making. Did you go out to find some devil's excrement and come back?" Li Lei did not eat venison. His current physical condition no longer allows him to take this kind of supplement. Venison www.wuxiaspot.com. "Yes, my leader." Li Lei hesitated and waved his hand to signal the 2 men around him to eat meat. The 2 men left here happily. Then Li Lei asked, "Do you know the iron smelting methods of those Vasikas?" "Yes, my leader, I got the guidance of the sun god, and I already know the steel-making techniques of the Vasichas." "So, what Hong Yun said about those things are true. My sister really thinks you are the son of God?" Li Lei frowned and asked. Shi Xiong knows from Hong Yun that Li Lei is not only the leader of the tribe, he is also Hong Yun's uncle, that is, the brother of the previous generation of Kabru. Hong Yun would definitely tell Li Lei about his own affairs. So he nodded affirmatively. "It's not just the Supreme Sun who pointed me to me, the sun also made my mind no longer so stupid." Li Lei looked at Shi Xiong and seemed to want to say something, but finally sighed slightly and said, "I don't have much time, so I hope you can always protect our people." "Don't worry, my leader, the people accepted us when we were most difficult, and I will do my best to protect them." "That's good, that's good." Li Lei nodded in satisfaction, and then continued, "If you need something else or need manpower, please give it to me or Hong Yun and say that I and Hong Yun will support you." Thanks to the leader for his support. Shi Xiong smiled slightly. "Leader, since you said that, I really need some help here. P.S. Boat to thank the Flying Pig 500 for rewards, and book friends 201701111650255572 inches for 100 rewards." Chapter 27, Stone Bear and number 039:S request. Although Hong Yun is a sacrifice to Kabulu, she still has relatively little power in mobilizing manpower. If there is no very special situation, Hong Yun, as a sacrifice, cannot mobilize too many clansmen. Mobilize all the clansmen. That is the power that only the leader can have. This kind of power is sacred and unshakable, otherwise a tribe will be completely messed up. This is the experience gained by the North American Indians after so many years. Therefore, in a tribe, the chief or chief is definitely the most powerful person. Sacrifice or high priest can only be said to be the spiritual leader of a tribe. Shi Xiong knows very well that Hong Yun's support is far from enough to develop the Gaoshu tribe. Now that the leader of Li Lei has admitted his identity as the so-called son of the god, he can now give orders while Li Lei is the leader. Let him help more. Hearing what Shi Xiong said, Li Lei was stunned for a moment, and then nodded. You need help from your clan now, so just say it, as long as it is a reasonable request. I will try my best to satisfy you. Chief, there is actually nothing difficult. It is more trivial and requires more manpower. Now I need to find a kind of white and more delicate soil, and I also need to find a white stone. This kind of stone should be very common, but that kind of white and delicate soil should not be easy to find, so I need help from the tribe. Of course, it would be better if I could find a stone with a metallic luster. After a pause, Shi Xiong continued to explain, the first two things are the key things needed for steel making. Without these two things, it is difficult to make steel. With these two things, then we can compete with those Vasical. We also have our own steel. Li Lei looked very interested, and asked, what are these two things for? What is the last kind of stone with metallic luster you mentioned? This matter is not easy to explain. I can't tell Li Lei that whether it is a crucible or a refractory brick used in a steel-making blast furnace, it needs kaolin clay to make it, right? As for limestone, it is an indispensable slagging agent in blast furnace steel making. Without this thing, it is difficult to guarantee the quality of steel produced. Therefore, Shi Xiong said vaguely, the Great Sun pointed me out that if I want to make my own steel, these two things must be indispensable. As for the last kind of stone, it is actually a kind of iron ore. If the front is white soil and white stone are indispensable auxiliary materials for steel making, then this kind of black-gray, dark red or ochre yellow stone is the direct source of steel. This kind of stone is called iron ore. Only steel can be made from stone. White soil, white stones and iron ore, there should be around our tribe, but the Supreme Sun did not tell me where they are buried, so I need people from the tribe to help find these three things. As long as they have these three things, plus the coal that I found with Kuemo this morning, we can make our own steel. In the future, the weapons in the hands of our soldiers will also be replaced with steel weapons, and we will never use those. The beautiful fur has changed iron pots with those Vasicus. Hearing Shi Xiong's explanation, Li Lei seemed a little excited. Li Xiong, as long as we find these three things, we can really have our own steel weapons? Yes, I can assure you about this. Well, one thing needs to be said is that although most of the iron ore is buried under the ground, there is usually an obvious difference in the place where there is iron ore. The place, that is, as long as the area has iron ore under the ground, the trees and flowers there will usually not grow too luxuriantly. If the iron ore is buried very shallowly, there will even be no grass. This is useful for finding iron. The ore is very helpful. Li Lei nodded affirmatively. I remember. I will tell the people. Shi Xiong is not at all worried about whether the tribe can find kaolin, limestone and iron ore. The entire Appalachian mountain range is said to be a treasure mountain. According to scientists' calculations, this mountain range that does not seem to be high today is likely to be as high as the Rocky Mountains 480 million years ago. Only after hundreds of millions of years of weathering, this mountain range has been flattened a lot. But even so, this fold mountain range, which runs through the east coast of North America with a length of more than 3,000 kilometers from north to south, and an average width of more than 400 kilometers, contains a huge amount of mineral resources. Not to mention coal. The Appalachian coalfield in the north of the Appalachian Mountains can be called the largest coalfield in the world. The coal contained here is enough for the world to use for hundreds of years. There is also iron ore, and the amount of mine available in this mountain range is extremely impressive. Even this mountain range contains rich mineral resources of precious metals such as gold and silver. I'm reading www.hukinshu.com. As for limestone, marble, kaolin and other non-metallic minerals, they are everywhere in this mountain range. Why is the United States of later generations so good? One of the big reasons is because of the huge mineral resources contained in the Appalachian Mountains, especially near the Great Lakes region. It has become a U.S. steel manufacturing base. This is the fundamental reason for the rapid rise of the United States in later generations. Although the Great Smoky Mountains where the High Tree tribe is located is close to the southern Appalachian Mountains, the mineral resources are not as abundant as in the northern part of the mountain range, but for the small High Tree tribe and even the entire Eastern Cherokee tribe, these mineral resources they are all worthy of the sky. In terms of the current size of the Gaoshu tribe, only a small iron ore and coal mine need to be found near the Great Smoky Mountain, which will be enough for the Gaoshu tribe for hundreds of years. The leader of Lilei is a very mobile leader. Even if he is dying, he still does things in a vigorous and resolute style. It was in the afternoon when Shi Xiong told Lilei these things, but in the evening, Lilei sent someone to invite Shi Xiong to the wooden house where he lived. When Shi Xiong entered this wooden house, he found that in addition to the leader Lilei and the two men who took care of him, there were 3 other tribesmen who knew Shi Xiong, but could not be named. After all, he came to Gaoshu tribe. The time is too short. These 3 people have an old man, a grown-up child and a 13 or 14-year-old boy. The old man is almost 40 years old. This age is considered to be a longevity among North American Indians. He is called Gray Moose. That man is more than 20 years old and his name is Big Spear. As for that boy, also has his own clan name. He is called Fengruishi. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Kaolin. On the blue misty hillside to the south, I once saw the fine white soil that the leader said. That time, my companion and I went hunting in the mountains. During the rest, I dug a hole to make a fire and cook. I have come out of that white soil, the middle-aged man Dasu said first. Kaolin is very different from ordinary soil. Since Dajiao said that, it is enough to prove that there is a kaolin mine there. In later generations, according to surveys, the distribution of kaolin in the United States is also quite wide. The area with the highest kaolin production in the United States is located around the Great Smoky Mountain National Forest. There are even reports that there are several in the Great Smoky Mountain National Forest. Kaolin mine with very abundant reserves. It's just that because it is a forest park that is heavily protected in the United States and even the world, no one can mine mineral resources here. But in this era, even the United States does not even exist. Who else will care about this? Big Spear, is the place you're talking about far from the tribe? It's not too far. Starting from the tribe and climbing the mountain, you can reach that location within half a mountainside. Okay, then we two will go there together tomorrow, Shi Xiong said with certainty, and then he turned his gaze to the young man named Fengruishi. Although the young man looked good in physique, he was actually a bit shy. After seeing the guardian's gaze, he was a little bit shy, lowered his head and said, "Guardian, I will go to the place that the spear said." "Yes, and I found some white stones on the way to that place. I thought those stones were pretty at the time, and I brought one back," Fengruishi said, and took out a fist-sized blue-white stone from his pocket. Shi Xiong took it, and he could tell the identity of this stone at a glance. This stone is exactly a piece of limestone. Even if Shi Xiong was a museum associate researcher in later generations, mainly studying historical relics and doing cultural preservation work for cultural relics, he had seen too much limestone. Among other things, the stones used to build the courtyard walls in my hometown include a lot of limestone. Limestone is simply calcium carbonate. The reserves of this thing on the earth can only be described as numerous. There are many limestone mines in the Appalachian Mountains, and it is not surprising to find one in the Great Smoky Mountains. Only in this era, North American Indians did not know that this kind of stone was an excellent building material. It is no wonder that most of the North American Indians of this era live in animal hide tents, and a few Indians live in wooden houses. Apart from making stone knives or stone arrows, no one likes to play with stones that can be seen everywhere. Shi Xiong sat on the stone with satisfaction, and smiled and said to Fengruishi, "Wait tomorrow, take me there and see." "Okay," the boy nodded happily. The name of this young man deserves to be called Fengrui Stone. It is estimated that it has a great relationship with him since he was a child and he liked to play with stones. That's why he was given the name of such a clan. People who like to play with rocks usually take them home to play with after seeing some special rocks. It is estimated that this piece of limestone was brought back by him because of the habit of the sharp stone. This is what I'd have done. When Shi Xiong looked at the last old man named Gray Moose, he nodded consciously and said, "That was during a hunting a long time ago. I remember seeing a piece of land with almost nothing growing. The place. I remember that place because the hunting happened in the thunder moon, July. At that time, it was the hottest time of the year and the most vigorous vegetation growth at the time, but in that place, there were no trees and even the weeds grew very short. I remember that the Bighorn leader said that this place was cursed by the devil, and even a demon was buried there, so there will be no vegetation." Hearing the name Bighorn Bull, Leader Li Lei was a little bit sad. The Bighorn Bull leader was the previous leader of the Gaoshu tribe and the father of him and the deceased Kabru. Shi Xiong asked, "Gray Moose, is that place far from the tribe?" "It's not far, it's at the foot of the Bison Mountain to the north of the tribe, and there is still a long way to the north of the Big Bend." When I heard the Gray Moose, Shi Xiong felt a little relieved. According to the position of the Gaoshu tribe in later generations, the Bison Mountain referred to by the Gray Moose is the parallel fold mountains between the Great Smoky Mountains and the south bank of the Tennessee River, and the distance from the tribe is about 4 or 5 kilometers. It's really not far. The 3 tribesmen who provided the information were rewarded the venison of the big red deer, as the person who hunted the big red deer alone. The stone bear has half the distribution rights for this deer. The 3 rewarded tribesmen happily returned home carrying venison. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, they will lead the guardian to see those places. Although it is still the month of the November, the decrease in temperature has made it difficult for many prey to hide in hiding. It is already difficult to catch prey on a large scale, so these venison are not the same for all 3. Philippines reward. I'm reading www.youcanchew.com and the weather is getting colder and colder. The tribe has rarely held large-scale hunting activities. Everyone in the tribe has started medong, and they are full of time. Early the next morning, 4 horses left the tribe. Stone Bear, Fast Horse, Sharp Stone and Big Spear rode towards the Great Smoky Mountain to the south. The tribe is at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountain and started climbing almost not far. After led the horse to climb the mountain for about an hour. The spear pointed at a forest in front and said, "The white soil was found there. This is a large oak forest, where you can't see the edge of the oak trees growing crazily on this hillside. There are tall oak trees with a height of more than 30 meters and a diameter of more than 1.5 meters. After walking into the oak forest, a few people came to a relatively flat and spacious place, where traces of fire and cooking can be seen everywhere. Obviously, this spacious area is where the hunters of the Gaoshu tribe often stop. A thick dead branch was easily broken from an oak tree, and then the stone bear began to dig on the ground. Soon after the surface soil was dug down about 20 centimeters, a layer of white and delicate soil appeared, in front of Shi Xiong. Bent down and grabbed a hand. Shi Xiong rubbed it slightly. It felt soft and slippery at the same time. Yes, it was the kaolin that I had seen in my previous life. The former home of Shi Xiong was in a mountainous area. There was a kaolin mine not far from his village. When Shi Xiong was a child, he and his friends had misfortunes in that mine. Naturally, he knew what kaolin was. The white delicate clay in his kaolin. P.S. I ask for a recommendation ticket. Lao Mo is a little overwhelmed by the few recommendation votes. Chapter 29, Biting Stones. Seeing a satisfied look on Shi Xiong's face, the heart that had been hanging with the spear fell safely. Although this big man has only recently joined the tribe, he is already the guardian of the new Kabru sacrifice. This kind of identity is not comparable to that of an ordinary tribal warrior. The most important thing is that yesterday the big man hunted the red deer alone. The people in the tribe knew the whole process through the bunny mouth. For this big man, he could weigh more than one head with a spear at such a distance. 1,000 jins of deer head nailed directly to the ground. This kind of person is definitely not comparable to him, an ordinary warrior. Therefore, before not knowing it, Stone Bear has established a certain prestige in the Gaoshu tribe. Large spear, you will go back now and bring more people from the tribe. These soils need to be brought back. After a while, you will find limestone on the way back. If you find limestone, then you can bring as many as you can with these 2 things. After we find everything, Our tribe's warriors can use steel-made weapons, and our tribesmen can also use iron pots. The unspoken spear nodded heavily, turned the horse's head, and hurried towards the tribe. Ishikama straightened up, looked at the surrounding environment, and finally nodded slowly. As a cultural protection expert who was able to become an associate researcher at the age of 36, Shi Xiong was rather nerdy in his previous life, but he also had his characteristics, that is, he is knowledgeable and knowledgeable. This term is definitely not a match for him. Although the stone bear in the previous life didn't like to move very much, he likes to read books and all kinds of materials, and his memory is particularly powerful, so he can get a lot of knowledge at his fingertips. The staff in the museum, including the curator, gave Shi Xiong a nickname, Humanoid Computer. It can be seen how broad the knowledge of Shi Xiong is. Although he is engaged in a museum, he has a wide range of knowledge in other areas, especially since he used to make up for a lot of knowledge about Tennessee before coming to Tennessee, plus there is one near his hometown, kaolin mine, so he can easily distinguish whether the white soil in front of him is kaolin. This is definitely kaolin, and it is still very good quality kaolin. It's no wonder that the kaolin they discovered at the beginning should be in a kaolin vein belt. In fact, the largest country in the world has been surveyed for the storage of kaolin in later generations is the United States. In the United States, the kaolin-enriched mine is located in Georgia. Here, there is a kaolin vein belt that stretches more than 800 kilometers, and the ore content in it is as high as 70%. It is a high-quality vein with rich reserves and high grade. Although the location here is not in the later Georgia, it is still within that vein belt, so it is not surprising to find such high-quality kaolin. With this high-quality kaolin vein with no known reserves, no matter whether it is a kaolin clay crucible or a refractory brick during steel making, there is no need to worry about it. Took Kuema and Fangui Stone to start the return journey. During the return journey, when he was about to reach the foot of the Great Smoky Mountain, Fangui Stone led the stone bear to a very weathered hill. This mountain is very peculiar, because this mountain does not grow a hair. This is the Great Smoky Mountain. Especially in this era, the vegetation coverage rate can't be said to be 100%. 90% is definitely there, even if it is late autumn. Most of the places are covered with dense vegetation. But this hill is very special, because there are hardly any plants on this hill. If it wasn't for the color of the hill to be wrong, Shi Xiong would really think that the hill was an iron mine. Guardian, I found those stones at the foot of the west side of this hill. Looking condescendingly, Shi Xiong's expression immediately became extremely exciting, because the three of them all saw that there are many animals at the foot of that hill, biting the mountain. Yes, these animals are mostly herbivores such as red deer, bison, and wild goats. There are hundreds of them. These animals were quietly there with their heads low, as if they were gnawing grass roots on the ground. But by the way, not far from this hill, there are a lot of withered weeds. These herbivores do not eat those weeds, but come over to catch some stones and gnaw them. This phenomenon is really weird. Fangui Stone bowed to the mountain and then said, the Kabul sacrifice once said that this hill is a sheltered place for the god of the earth. Every day, many animals come here to bow their heads and worship the god of the earth. Even many wild wolves and black bears come here. Sometimes wild wolves, wild goats, and bison will worship the of the earth at the same time. So people in our tribe never come here to hunt. Shi Xiong laughed loudly, patted Fangui Shishi on the shoulder and said, Boy, www.wuxiaspot.com, you have done a great job. This sentence made Fangui Shi and Kuima bewildered, but seeing Shi Xiong galloping towards the hill first, the two of them patted the horses and immediately followed. When Kuima and Fangui Shi rushed to the hill, they found Shi Xiong squatting on the ground licking his fingers with a smile. The bruise on this guy's face hasn't completely subsided, and coupled with his intimidating physique, it makes people feel like they shouldn't come near, but at this moment there is a very strange smile on his face, that the demeanor seemed even more frightening. What they didn't know was that Shi Xiong was really happy at this time. Compared to finding kaolin, limestone or even iron ore, this hill in front of you is the real golden mountain. Without him, The hill in front of me is a salt mountain, to be precise. It is a rock salt mine protruding from the surface. Just now, after seeing the strange behavior of the herbivores, especially after hearing the explanation of Feng Rui Shi Xiong had a 7-point confidence in his heart to judge that the hill was most likely a salt mountain. Those animals come to this hill every day to eat the stones. This is actually an act of nourishing salt. Whether it's meat or grass-eating animals, or even papa-eating animals, they cannot do without salt. It can be said that as long as there are animals in this world, salt is inseparable. Animals don't cook salt and smoke by themselves. They can only rely on their instincts to find some salt-containing stones or saline alkali grounds, and then sweets, so as to ensure the intake of salt in the body. This hill is actually a natural salt mountain, so all kinds of animals come here every day to eat the stones. To be precise, these animals are not eating rocks, but licking rocks to replenish salt. Chapter 30, Salt. When the stone bear in the late autumn of a previous life visited the museum in Long Province, he once saw many sheep grabbing the earth on the empty land. At that time, the stone bear said distressedly, "These sheep are really real, poor. Why didn't their master prepare more feed? Look at these lambs who are hungry, even the dirt." As a result, a colleague from the museum there gave Shi Xiong an embarrassing answer: "These sheep are not gnawing the soil, because they are all saline soils with high salt content, so these sheep lick the soil here to replenish their body." Salt. Shi Xiong remembers very clearly, at that time, this answer embarrassed himself. It was almost at the end of cancer. Later, Shi Xiong specialized in studying this knowledge, so he can see today what the animals are gathering under this hill. After confirming that this hill was a salt mountain protruding from the surface, Shi Xiong's mind immediately became alive. Salt is a good thing in this era. It is no exaggeration to say that the value of this thing in this era is definitely not lower than that of gold. This is really not an exaggeration. Before mankind mastered the methods of large-scale salt mining and salt production, salt was the most demanding material in the world, and there was absolutely no one. Salt is the #1 flavor. As long as a person lives, he cannot do without salt. The importance of salt to humans is really as important as air, water and food. It can be said that the history of salt is a history of human civilization. Whether it is ancient China or the ancient West, salt is very precious, and even once played the role of currency. In ancient Rome, when ancient Roman aristocrats had vested interests ruling groups, even based on the salt covenant established by God as the source of law and legal principles, legislation prohibited the boiled and sold salt, and at the same time valued salt as the salary in kind. To organize and hire a professional army, hoping to tie the interests of the army tightly with the effective enforcement of the salt production and trade monopoly law. In medieval British upper-class banquets, the salt shaker on the table was placed above the owner's seat. Sitting on the top of the salt, that is, sitting at the place closest to the owner, is particularly respected by the owner, which is equivalent to respected as a guest of honor. And sitting at the bottom are insignificant little people, ordinary guests. On the royal dining table of the French royal family, there are usually huge and beautifully decorated boat-shaped basins filled with salt. Salt symbolizes health and the way of long-term preservation. It conveys that the king's body is very healthy and healthy, the meaning of sustainable inheritance. As for before the 20th century, there were countless wars over salt. There is a noun in China called compete in the Central Plains. This word is a term used for war. It refers to a group of heroes coming together to contend for the world. But in fact, according to the research of historians, the word was produced much earlier than the historical records. Huai Hu biography recorded that Qin lost its deer, and the world chased it. It was so late. China's earliest large-scale, organized war was fought by the 3 tribes of China's ancestors, Huangdi, Yandi, and Qiyu, in order to compete for the Yanchai and the Yuncheng area of Shaanxi province. Qian Mu, a well-known Chinese historian, pointed out in the book Introduction to the History of Chinese Culture that the Salt Pond of Ji County was a goal that the various tribes of the Central Plains in ancient China fought together. Qualifications. The Yellow Emperor launched a war against Emperor Yan and Qiyu, fundamentally to control salt, an extremely important livelihood and strategic material. As Huang Di defeated Yandi and Chiyu successively, and occupied and controlled Yanchai, his tribe became stronger and stronger and eventually became the ancestor of China. Yao, Shun, and Yu successively became the emperors and queens who unified China, and they chose to build cities near Yanchai and Pinyang, Linfen, Jin Province, Buban, Yongjai, Jin Province, and Eni, north of Yuncheng, Shaanxi. The capital of Shun and Yu was precisely out of the consideration of defending Yanchai. In ancient China, salt was called turbid brine, because of the homophony. Turbid brine gradually became Zulu, and later it became Zulu, so later generations competed with their ancestors for salt. The Battle of Halajan Kai was called competition for the Central Plains, and this term later became synonymous with war. In ancient Central and South America, a highly developed Maya civilization was produced. In the first millennium BC, the Mayans could use solar energy to evaporate and produce sea salt in the Yucatan Peninsula. At the beginning of the 16th century, the Maya had a huge industry and extensive trade related to salt. The scope of trade not only included salt, but also salt-processed salted products, such as salted fish and leather. Mayan civilization flourished due to the production and trade of salt. Similarly, it was precisely because of the abundant salt resources of the Mayan civilization that the European colonists were coveted. Then the Spanish colonists who controlled the thermal weapons raised their butchers to the friendly and hospitable Mayans, and the whole of Central and South America broke out. The continuous war finally led to the historical tragedy of the demise of the Maya nation and the annihilation of civilization. As for the U.S. Independence War, the British Army severely weakened the combat effectiveness of the Continental Army led by Washington by cutting off the supply of salt, restricting and slowing down the process of American independence. And during the American Civil War, the Northern Army led by Lincoln destroyed salt fields in the South, resulting in an extreme shortage of salt in the South. Yukanshu severely affected the combat effectiveness of the Southern forces and accelerated the progress of the war. It can be seen that the history of salt is not only a history of human civilization, but also a history of human warfare. At the same time, it is enough to prove the importance of salt to mankind. Now, let alone the North American continent, even in the European continent, the salt production is extremely low. The 100 Years' War between Britain and France, which lasted for more than 100 years, was actually due to salt. In this age, salt is also a very scarce material in Europe, and it is even more precious here in North America. The main reason for this situation is that the human salt mining and salt production technology has not yet reached, so it has formed a situation where salt is not enough today. It is well known that the cost of using seawater to dry and boil salt is very high. Even in later generations, the cost of sea salt is much higher than that of well salt. Regardless of whether it is well salt or rock salt, it is mostly mixed with many impurities. If it is not refined, the salt produced will not only taste bad, the key is that it is poisonous and can kill people if eaten. Therefore, in Europe, the amount of well salt is not much mined. The mined well salt is all supplied to the nobles. The ordinary people and the soldiers of the army are mainly sea salt. But sun-dried salt is very restricted by the weather, so the local salt in Europe is not enough to eat. However, Europeans do not know how to refine well salt and rock salt, nor how to remove the large amount of impurities contained in them, but they know. Shi Xiong, who was squatting in front of this small salt mountain, narrowed his eyes and thought, unknowingly showing that kind of weird smile on his face. P.S. Gekyu recommendation tickets and collections. The recommendation ticket and collection of new books are very important to a book, so Lao Mo begged for both, the more the better. Old Mo is very grateful. Chapter 31, Bison Mountain. This hill is not all salt mountains, because the plants on the few hills next to this hill to the west of the hill are denser. Obviously, those hills are normal mountains. Riding the horse around this hill, Shi Xiong discovered chunks of limestone at the foot of several hills over there. This can be called double happiness. The emergence of coal, Kaolin and limestone have already provided the most basic conditions for iron smelting. As long as iron ore is found, even if the earth blast furnace of the era is used, as long as the raw iron can be smelted, steel making will be no problem. With kaolin, refractory bricks can be fired, then earth blast furnaces can be built, and coal, limestone and iron ore can be added to successfully smelt raw iron. While iron is being smelted, coking can be made in earth kilns. As long as coke and pig iron are produced, real steel can be produced by the frying method. This is a necessary step to smelt iron ore into steel. This was also the best and most efficient steel-making method before the advent of the open hearth furnace. In this age, coke steel-making has just appeared in the UK for only half a century, and the British have been very strict with the method of coking steel-making, so this method has not been completely spread on the European continent. It's just that, I am afraid that the king of the British Empire at this time would not have thought that there would be a monster in North America on the other side of the Atlantic. This monster was born with these steel-making methods. But compared to steel-making, what makes Shi Xiong most happy is the discovery of this small salt mountain. In fact, the reserves of salt on the earth are huge. Even if sea salt is not mentioned, the well salt, rock salt, and lake salt produced on land alone are enough for all human beings to eat for thousands of years. However, except for sea salt, most of the salt produced on land contains a lot of impurities, most of which cannot be eaten directly, and need to be refined before being eaten. Otherwise the taste is bad. The thing is really poisonous. Dead persons. This is the fundamental reason why there are so many well salt and rock salt in Europe, but the production of edible salt is still so small. In this age, in addition to the method of boiling salt to remove those toxic impurities, other methods of refining table salt are not available. It's like the Eastern Cherokee sent out caravans protected by many warriors every year to the Pamunkeys living in the eastern coastal area to exchange fur and food for salt. The Pamunkeys who lived in the Norfolk generation, I have mastered the method of making sea salt very early. It is not an exaggeration to say that once the Pamunkey cut off the salt supply to the Eastern Cherokee and Chickasha, these two Indian tribes who wished that their brains were turned into dog heads would immediately fall into the trap. In trouble. And there is a great possibility that the two tribes who had hated for hundreds of years will unite and destroy the Pamunkey people because of salt. Under the threat of existence, hatred is nothing at all. As long as all the salt in this small salt mountain is extracted, then the Gaoshu tribe will have one more strategic material. Since there is a comprehensive plan, the most basic materials are necessary if the plan is to be realized. The dynasties without strong material support are all buildings built on the beach, which is worse than the 5 types of scum. Any dynasty, whether it is the early stage of opening up the territory or the later stage of preservation, needs sufficient materials, especially in the early stage of opening up the territory. Without solid material support, opening up the territory and expanding the soil is a joke. As the saying goes, digging deep holes, accumulating grain and slowly becoming king is the reason. If you want the small high tree tribe to become a big tribe, or even the largest Indian tribe in America, you must start with the most basic accumulation. The 3 dug up some limestone and brought it back to the village. On the way, they encountered the tribe who had been gathered by the spear. The sharp stone was sent by the stone bear to act as a guide. After the tribe digs enough kaolin, they bring back some more limestone. Went back to the tribe and found the gray moose, the stone bear, the gray moose, and the kuwema, the 3 of them holding their weapons and proceeding northward. The target is Bison Mountain. Bison Mountain actually refers to the mountain range between the Great Smoky Mountains and the Tennessee River that consists of 4 or 5 small parallel mountains. Because there are many wild buffaloes living in this area, it is called the Bison Mountain by the Eastern Cherokee. In fact, the height of Bison Mountain is not high, only 100 meters. It is a bit too much to call it a mountain. Shi Xiong thinks that this fold mountain system should be called Bison Ridge. I used to come here when I was playing around Knoxville in my previous life. It's just that in the previous life, it was full of people, the low hills were full of dense trees, and the valleys were full of crops. At this time, the Bison Ridge is completely pure original ecology. No one can be seen, tall trees are everywhere on the mountain, and the foot of the mountain are covered with weeds. At this time, the leaves of those trees are almost gone, and the weeds on the ground are also withered, but it is this large area of weeds that cannot be seen at a glance, which feeds many bisons. Anyway, before Stone Bear arrived at the foot of the mountain, he saw dozens of huge bisons gnawing at the dry grass on the ground at a leisurely pace. www.wuxiaspot.com. For these bisons, they were beginning to change. In the cold late autumn season, being able to eat such withered grass is already a gift from the cow god. American bison mostly live on the prairies of Midwestern North America. Although there are traces of bison in the Appalachian Mountains, it is rare to see so many bison at once. The grasslands in the valleys of the Bison Mountain and the nearby plains, as well as the dense rivers around them, are the main reasons that attract this group of bisons to linger here. Regarding the approach of Shi Xiong and the three of them, the bison just raised their heads slightly and ignored the three little guys again. That's right, in front of these huge bisons, Shi Xiong and the three of them are really little guys. You must know that the American bison is one of the largest bison on the planet, and the weight of an adult male bison can reach 1 ton. And don't look at the pair of horns on the top of the bison's head is not very long, but even the most ferocious brown bear in North America and herds of wild wolves are unwilling to easily provoke an adult male bison. These guys can run up to a speed of 60 km per hour, coupled with the huge weight. Once a guy is topped by a running bison, even a Kodiak brown bear can't stand it. Therefore, these carnivorous overlords in North America will only target the small bison and old bison as their hunting targets. No one dares to attack an adult male bison. Even the North American Indians with weapons in hunting wild buffalo, they usually start with small buffalo, and if you want to hunt a wild buffalo, there are no 10 or 20 strong fighters. It is impossible to successfully hunt a bison. Therefore, in the eyes of these bull demon kings, there are only 3 stone bears and they are really nothing. Chapter 32, Hematite. Shi Xiong can even feel the contemptuous eyes of those bull demon kings, which makes Shi Xiong feel a little uncomfortable in his heart. Small, now Grandpa is going to be busy with business. Wait for a while to finish the business and then tidy up. Even Shi Xiong didn't notice it, as if his temper was becoming more and more different now. Don't look at the stone bear in the previous life with a bear in its name, but this guy's temperament is still acting without the shadow of a bear. The stone bear in the previous life has gradually become a complete otaku since he joined the work. In addition to going to work every day, he spends almost all his spare time in the rental house. Even when the unit raised internal funds for welfare housing, his quota was squeezed. But even if he was bullied like this, Shi Xiong didn't care much. If it wasn't for the leader to really think this guy was too stubborn, and eventually he was promoted to the rank of associate researcher, Shi Xiong is still a stubborn bullied. From this situation, the name Shi Xiong is really correct. This guy is really a bear. In the native dialect of the local people, it is called the bear is home. But after passing through this era and being attached to the silly head, perhaps affected by the original character of the silly head, the weakness in Shi Xiong's temper is slowly disappearing at this time. It's just that he himself hasn't noticed it yet. Yiniu Mountain is composed of 5 small hills with a height of 110 meters. The widest place in the north and south is more than 10 miles wide, but it stretches for more than 50 miles from east to west. Because Bison Mountain is actually a fold mountain, there are many valleys. The place the Gray Moose said was located at the foot of a valley in the middle of Bison Mountain. When Shi Xiong and the others came to this valley along the pass of Bison Mountain, even Shi Xiong boasted that they had seen many beautiful scenery in their previous lives. He couldn't help but sigh sincerely at the valley in front of him. This valley is almost 500 meters wide and 7 or 8 miles long. The entire valley is full of weeds that are mostly people tall. The hillsides on both sides of the valley are full of tall trees. Hundreds of bison are looming in the weeds. Everything seems so harmonious and peaceful. If it weren't for the hills on both sides of the valley, it's a bit short. It would be pretty good to regard this as a tribal base. The bison in the valley and the bison outside the valley are of the same virtue. Seeing these three weak two-legged monsters enter their territory, these bisons just glanced at them and ignored the three two-legged ones. Weird. This made Shi Xiong's mood even more uncomfortable. The words of the gray moose attracted the mind of the stone bear. Guardian, at the foot of the mountain across the valley, we hunted in this valley that year, and we were at the foot of the mountain when we were resting. The situation there is as you said. Like that, there are fewer trees and grass. Rode a horse quickly across the valley, led by the gray moose to the foot of the mountain. As the gray moose said, the vegetation at the foot of this mountain is indeed different from other places. In this area about 1 mile long and 40 to 50 meters wide, there are very few weeds or trees, and in some places even weeds are not long. If this valley is the head of a person with thick hair, then this area is like a bald spot. The most important thing is that this piece of ground shows a dark red color, as if there had been a huge massacre here, and the color formed after blood infiltrated the soil. With colors and vegetation, even if Shi Xiong's IQ drops to the level of a silly head again, he can tell at a glance that this area should indeed be a very shallow hematite mine. This discovery made Shi Xiong overjoyed. This is hematite? It can be said that it is the most suitable iron ore among all iron ore. Although magnetite is better, it is not easy to be reduced, and the resources of magnetite are relatively small. As for limonite, that thing is synonymous with low-grade lean ore, and limonite also contains a lot of impurities, which is very troublesome to smelt. Later generations of Australia and Brazil's iron ore, mostly high-grade hematite. No wonder people later called the Appalachian Mountains Gaoshu. This mountain range that stretches for more than 3,000 kilometers is indeed a treasure mountain. Only within a radius of less than 10 kilometers from the Gaoshu tribe, kaolin, hematite, limestone and a more precious salt mountain were discovered. Although the coal mine is far away, it is not an insurmountable difficulty. This is not Gaoshu, and what is it? You must know that the area where the Gaoshu tribe is located is already in the southern part of the Appalachian Mountains, but the mineral resources here are still so rich. If it is in the north, where resources are more abundant, there is really coal and iron everywhere. Although Stone Bear also admired the coal and iron resources in the northern Appalachian Mountains, he knew that he could never occupy the rich northern part with his current strength, not to mention the High Tree tribe. Even if the entire Cherokee is united, whether it can beat the Iroquois alliance in the north is a big problem. The entire Cherokee tribe was ousted by the Iroquois and Delawares joining forces. Guardian, is this the iron ore you said? The gray moose saw the stone bear standing there blankly without saying a word, so he cautiously greeted him. The words of the gray moose woke Shi Xiong from his contemplation. He looked back at the nervous gray moose and smiled slightly. Uncle Gray Moose, you really did meritorious service this time. That's right, there is iron ore in this area, and it's still high-grade hematite. With these iron ore, our tribe will be able to use weapons made of steel next year, and our tribe's people will no longer have to trade precious furs for those vasicus. It's a walk, because next year, we will be able to build our own walk. Is this true, Master Guardian? The beard on the gray moose's excited chin was trembling slightly, and even honorifics were used. Shi Xiong gave this 40-year-old old man a sure nod. Yes, Uncle Gray Moose, with this iron mine, and the things we found in the morning, wait to bring these things back. Horde, we can start smelting steel. By next year, you may be able to grab a steel knife made of stainless steel or long hair. The great sun is here. We can take on weapons made of steel. The gray moose knelt down to the southern sky with excitement, and began to pray sincerely. For this kind of veteran warrior, weapons made of steel are undoubtedly something as important as life. Chapter 33, Hunting the Bull Demon King. I don't know how big this hematite is, but it's not small, at least it's definitely enough for the current Gaoshu tribe. After Stone Bear walked a distance along this barely grassy land, a bigger surprise made his face bloom with joy. Not only is there no grass in this area, but some hematite ore has been exposed to the surface. Like the anthracite coal mine discovered earlier, this hematite mine is also an open pit mine with a very shallow depth. Some of the ore has been weathered, and the original color is not visible, but Shi Xiong picked up a volleyball-sized ore and weighed it. He immediately noticed that the invisible stone in his hand was heavier than ordinary rocks. A lot. This is hematite? It contains a lot of iron oxide. The density is twice that of ordinary rock, and the weight is naturally heavier. Come on, let's pick up a few more ore and go back, Shi Xiong said with a smile at Kuema and Grey Moose. The discovery of this hematite really made him very happy. To gain a firm foothold in this world and grow stronger, steel is an indispensable strategic material, and this hematite ore in front of you is the root of steel. Iron ore is very heavy, so the three of them picked up more than 100 caddies after a while. In order to prevent the horses from being too heavy, none of them picked up too much. On the way back, I saw those leisurely and contented bull demon kings still have the look of contempt, which made Shi Xiong very angry. In addition, the results of the hunting out of this season are not great, so Shi Xiong is ready to be like yesterday, get some meat back to the tribe. Yesterday's red deer has greatly changed the people's perception of themselves, so Shi Xiong decided to do something against these bull demon kings who disrespect him. Seeing Master Guardian carrying the heavy bone spear and quietly touching the herd, whether it is a gray moose or a fast horse, they squatted and waved their fists in excitement. Yesterday, he saw the huge red deer and gray moose. He was really shocked by the strength of the Guardian. As a veteran warrior in the tribe, the gray moose knows the difficulty of hunting an adult male red deer, but it is really incredible that such a big red deer was nailed to death by the Guardian with a spear. Now, Master Guardian obviously has to take action against bison that is more difficult to hunt. Is Master Guardian really able to hunt and kill a bison alone? As the big brother of herbivores on the North American continent, the herd of bison is obviously not wary of a single person. Even if the stone bear is big enough, in the eyes of these bull demon kings, he is still a small one. In fact, let alone a single person, even a bear or a pack of wolves, unless they are extremely hungry, even these top predators are reluctant to attack groups of bison. Because these top predators, it is clear to the reader that once the hordes of bison are angered, their fate is not so good. So, Shi Xiong quickly approached a bison grazing. This is an adult male bison. The obvious first sexual characteristic under the belly explains the gender of this bull demon king. This bison may be because the grass here is more delicious, so it unknowingly separated from the bison herd, which is why the stone bear picked this bull demon king. When the stone bear was about 30 meters away from the cow, the bull demon raised his head, and two huge bull eyes stared at the stone bear, as if to warn the stone bear. Seeing this, Shi Xiong did not hesitate. He lifted the heavy bone spear in his hand, took a few steps forward, and then kicked, twisted his hips, and turned around. He concentrated his entire body on his right arm with a sound, drinking low. The heavy bone spear is like a white lightning, spanning a distance of 30 meters in less than a second, and plunged directly into the body of the bison. This shot did not stick into the bison's neck as Ashikama originally intended, because the bison turned its body, and as a result, the heavy spear plunged directly above the bison's front legs. This is a surprise, because this location is where the left and right lung lobes and the heart of the bison are located. When hunting the big red deer yesterday, the tip of this heavy bone spear has been completely shattered. It took the stone bear half of the night to sharpen the sharp spear again. This time, under the strange power of the stone bear, the sharp tip of the spear easily pierced the tough skin of the bison, and then plunged directly into the bison's body like a broken bamboo. This shot may directly hit the bull's heart, because the bison only trembled twice, and fell to the ground without even making a call. The gray moose was stunned in this scene, but the quick laughed on the side, and ran to the stone bear to look at the bison that was still twitching. The silly head is the silly head. Whether it's a red deer or a bison, he is scumbag in front of his strange power. Well, there is delicious beef again tonight. Hurry up and think about it. Read www.whokenshoe.com, but he didn't dare to go up. Although this bison has fallen to the ground, hunters will never approach it until it is completely dead. According to word of mouth among the old people in the clan, a severely injured bison will fight back before dying, which is extremely dangerous. Shi Xiong said to Kuei-ma, "You first unload the iron ore from the horse, and ride back to inform the people to come and pull the bull. This thing is so heavy that the three of us can't get it back." Hurry up and ran back happily, and after a while, he was riding a horse away. When Stone Bear returned to the tribe was lively. There are 30 or 40 people who went to the Great Smoky Mountain to dig kaolin and limestone in the south. Now they piled up the kaolin and limestone at the door of the Stone Bear room. The people of these things definitely don't know how to use them. With their brains, they can't figure out how these stones and soil can be turned into steel. However, this matter was supported by the Cabra sacrifice, so although these tribesmen were reluctant to do this kind of work at first, they still brought back everything the Stone Bear needed. Now that Kuei-ma said that the guardian hunted and killed a big bison alone, there was no more reluctance in the whole tribe. Limestone, fortunately, is piled outside, but since the kaolin has been dug out, it's better not to splash it with water. Therefore, under the command of Shi Xiong, several strong clansmen poured the 700 or 800 kilograms of kaolin into Shi Xiong's house. This is good. The Stone Bear's house was originally small, but now almost all of it is occupied by the kaolin. But Shi Xiong didn't care. These things are the basis for starting up in the future. I basically have everything I need now, and I'm waiting for a big deal tomorrow. Chapter 34, Pouring Steel Method. Early the next morning, the whole tribe became lively. Yesterday, Lord Guardian hunted and killed a bison alone. This was a great event for the entire tribe, and having meat for 2 days in a row has further improved the reputation of Stone Bear among the tribe. After a cow is slaughtered, about 45% of beef can be produced under normal circumstances. However, unlike the white people who believe in Christ, North American Indians do not eat the offal of animals. North American Indians eat almost everything. As the elite foodies of the big food empire, the Stone Bear is naturally more concerned about offal. On the contrary, for the Stone Bear, the offal of the bison is more delicious than beef. Therefore, this poor cow demon may still be able to preserve the horns, bones, and hides of the cow. It is estimated that all other parts of his body will be eaten by this group of Indians. The clansmen responsible for the slaughter and the tribe kept all the internal organs according to Shi Xiong's instructions. These internal organs need to be well soaked in order to make delicious offal. However, Shi Xiong has no time during the day, so early in the morning, after eating a few chunks of beef stewed in white water and salt, he moved a bit and began to prepare the tools for steel making. At first, Shi Xiong planned to use the crucible to make those pig irons, but after thinking about it, he felt that there was something missing in steel making with the crucible. Later, he remembered that if he uses kaolin clay as a crucible, there is no graphite in the crucible. The crucible steel making method requires a graphite crucible, which requires graphite and pig iron to react at a high temperature to finally produce steel. But what should I do if I don't have graphite in my hands? Later, Shi Xiong finally decided to use the steel frying method. But after thinking about it, he realized that there is no thermometer now, let alone a special thermometer used in the metallurgical industry. Therefore, it is not easy to control the temperature with the steel frying method. Smelt a furnace of molten iron to waste. Finally, Shi Xiong thought of the steel filling method. This kind of steel making method developed on the basis of the technology of the steel fry method is easier to control than the steel fry method, and it can also better control the carbon content of the steel produced. The most important thing is that in terms of the materials and conditions that I currently have on hand, the steel filling method is the most suitable for my current situation. Finally, after careful consideration, Shi Xiong decided to use the filling method for the first furnace of steel he made. If you want to use steel filling to make steel, filling furnaces and blast equipment are indispensable. As for the fuel, there is no more suitable fuel than coke. However, coke also requires special refining, which is more troublesome, but this is not a problem. In his previous life, as an associate researcher-level cultural protection expert, Shi Xiong had seen many pots in the Tang and Song dynasties in Sichuan and Henan, and later studied the use of these pots and how to pot steel. In terms of the current level of technological development, open hearth furnaces and converters, let alone Indians, even European whites don't have the ability to make them. It will take more than 100 years for these things to be invented and manufactured. Now to make steel, you can only use the steel frying method or the steel filling method. Under the current technological conditions, the highest temperature that humans can reach in metallurgy does not exceed 1400 degrees Celsius, so it is almost impossible to make high-quality steel. However, China's ancestors developed the steel filling method based on the steel frying method, so that the smelted steel material has a certain guarantee. Ishikama now does not have higher requirements for the quality of steel, as long as the steel can be produced. It is a huge improvement. As for how to make higher quality steel in the future, it will take more people and more time to do it slowly. The steel filling method appeared as early as the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, but the use of steel filling method to greatly improve the quality of steel will have to wait until the Northern and Southern dynasties. A smelting genius appeared during the Southern and Northern dynasties, named Shi Xiong. This guy is a native of North Kixing. Later, he once served as the governor of North Chisinzhu, and he is considered to be a member of the party. Shi Xiong, who was in the position of official and governor, was also a genius in steelmaking. He made a breakthrough in the development and improvement of the steel filling method that appeared at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty. At the same time, he also made unique creations in knife making and heat treatment, and made epoch-making contributions to the development of China metallurgical technology. History books once recorded how Shi Xiong made steel. Bake pig iron, use it to soften the collar, and it will become steel after a few nights. In modern terms, the meaning of this sentence is to select iron ore with a relatively high level during steel making, first smelt high-quality pig iron, and then pour the liquid pig iron on the wrought iron. After several times of smelting, the iron can be penetrated. Carbon becomes steel. Since pig iron and wrought iron are staying together, the steel produced is called staying iron. This was definitely a breakthrough technology at the time. Because the temperature is not well controlled, it is difficult to produce low-carbon steel. Most of the steel produced by the frying method has poor temperature control, resulting in incomplete oxidation of impurities and carbon in the molten iron. So most of them are some medium and high-carbon steel, which is good for farm tools or daily necessities, but it is far from enough to build weapons. The emergence of the steel filling method www.wuxiaspa.com especially the emergence of the steel filling method modified by Kidawen, making low-carbon steel making has become a controllable method. In modern terms, when using this method of filling steel to make steel, because pig iron is used as a carburizing agent, the high temperature after melting can accelerate the rate of carburizing into the wrought iron, shorten the smelting time, and increase productivity. At the same time, wrought iron becomes steel due to the infiltration of carbon, and pig iron can also become steel due to decarburization, increasing the output of steel. Moreover, at high temperatures, the carbon, silicon, manganese, etc. in the liquid pig iron react with the oxide inclusions in the wrought iron to remove impurities, purify the metal structure, and improve the quality of the metal. The most critical point is that the steel filling method is easy to operate and easy to master. To obtain steels with different carbon content, as long as the pig iron and wrought iron are mixed in a certain proportion and smelted, they can be obtained. Ishikama took a look at all the materials he had on hand, and found that the steel filling method is obviously better than the fried steel method. The iron ore in my hand is hematite. Although I don't know what the grade is, the grade of hematite is generally high, and it should be able to meet the iron ore requirements of the steel filling method. The slag making agent also has limestone itself, as well as the kaolin used to make refractory bricks, let alone fuel coal. As for the pig iron used as carburizing agent, the best carburizing agent will be the best carburizing agent after those big iron pots are broken. With these things, why can't you make steel? Therefore, under the supervision of the leader of Lilaya in the Kabru sacrifice, and with the encouragement of Shi Xiong's promise of meat every day, All the tribesmen in the tribe mobilized and started to do the various priest-heel-making activities under Shi Xiong's command, kind of preparation. P.S. Bow to thank people with a little common sense for the reward of 1,000, and book friends 2017111515255933 inches for the reward of 100. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Utilization of Coking Waste Heat. Ironware is a treasure to the people of the Gaoshu tribe, the same treasure as horses. Whether it's an iron pan, a shovel, or a small amount of knives. Even these ironware are made of poor quality pig iron, but for the North American Indians who don't know how to smelt metals, these are much harder than stones and bones. The ironware is simply a gift from the gods. Horses and ironware are the most important goods that North American Indians traded with those Wasakas. The colonists from Europe don't even need to pay for it, they only need to buy some unnecessary iron junk in Europe, and then they can exchange it for precious and gorgeous fur with the local Indians in North America. As the Aboriginal people living in the easternmost part of the North American continent, the Gaoshu tribe has been in contact with the Wasakas more than 100 years ago, so there are still some iron tools in the tribe. However, there are no 2 or 3 iron tools like shovels and hoes in the entire tribe, so most people in the tribe use stone shovels and stone hoes to work, and some people start to live in mud. Other tribes who did not dig pits were sent by stone bears to pull coal and limestone, kaolin and iron ore. Almost all the people in the tribe were dispatched. Needless to say, the sturdy men, the women of the same size, did the same job as those men. Older people took the children to serve as a transport brigade, and they would use the few cars in the village to pull those things. The people of the Gaoshu tribe live in wooden houses, so there are carpenters with high skills in the tribe. Especially after contacting the Wasakas, these carpenters exchanged furs for a complete set of woodworking tools from the Wasakas, which greatly improved their carpentry skills. Several carpenters in the tribe got together, and according to the plan that Shi Xiong said before, began to figure out how to make the bellows that Master Guardian said. "Why are you digging such a big pit?" Kabilu asked curiously, standing beside the stone bear, her eyes always wandering between the clansmen in the living mud and the clansmen who dig the pit. The leader of the tribe, Li Lei, sat aside, watching the scene in front of him with interest. For them, everything that happened before them was something they had never seen before, and curiosity was inevitable. Li Lei also pricked his ears, and he also wanted to hear why the guardian asked the tribe to do these tasks. It's strange to say that Li Lei, who seemed to be about to die some time ago, is now slowing down. His face is no longer so pale, but a little more blush. The most important thing is that he doesn't have to lie down like he did some time ago, and now he can even sit up by himself. This change made Shi Xiong very puzzled. However, Shi Xiong still agrees with Li Lei's improvement. After all, Li Lei was very supportive of him now, especially after he hunted down a red deer and a bison alone. Leader Li Lei's support for him became even more obvious. Is like today's full mobilization. If Li Lei didn't speak, the tribe would not listen to him, the guardian. It is necessary to dig this pit. After the pit is dug, kaolin is spread around it, and it can be used for coking after it is naturally dried in the shade. Coking? What is coking? Li Lei asked curiously. Coking is the process of making coal into coke. The wood we use now burns at a low temperature, so iron ore cannot be melted. The temperature required for steel making is higher than melting iron ore, so let alone charcoal. Even if it is burned to produce higher temperature coal, it cannot make steel very well. Only using coke to make steel is the best. After a pause, Shi Xiong continued to explain, well, this coking is for the future. Now we can use coal for steel making. Regarding words such as burning temperature and calorie, the leader Li Lei and the Kabul ritual are the same as the Tingshu, but looking at the guardian's confident appearance, the two of them are very unclear. In fact, Shi Xiong is now rushing ducks to the shelves. Although he knows some knowledge about steelmaking, where did he make steel? Now he can only make steel in accordance with the methods mentioned in the materials obtained in the previous life. For example, Shi Xiong has only heard of coking and watched it on the video, but if you ask him to make coking, he is also a rolling pin and blowing fire knows nothing about it. And how to make refractory bricks, he has never done that stuff. But the problem is that it's all like this now, and you have to bite the bullet and do things. After all, the most important materials for steelmaking are available, and the main materials for making refractory bricks are also available, so just bite the bullet. The big deal is that good steel can't be made. Can't we make new steel? It's really not possible. I'm reading www.youcanchew.com can also be made by smelting raw iron or wrought iron. The Cabra priest pointed to the side of the big pit that had just been dug out and asked, "Big Bear, then why do you build a house with stones next to the big pit? Do you want to live here? You hate it. Is your house bad?" This question made the stone bear ask a little bit. After thinking about it, he said, "Cabra sacrifices. This stone-built house is not for people, and I have no plans to live there. This house is what I plan to use. Burning refractory bricks. Well, the temperature inside the furnace is extremely high during steelmaking. If special refractory bricks are not used, the furnace will be cracked or even exploded. Therefore, the furnace must be built with refractory bricks that can withstand high temperatures. In this way, the safety in the steelmaking process can be ensured." Shi Xiong did this because when he studied ancient steelmaking in his previous life, he also referred to modern steelmaking technology. He remembered that he had seen a report about using waste heat from coking to burn bricks in an article. A large amount of waste heat is generated during the coking process. This waste heat is exhaust gas with a temperature as high as 600 to 900 degrees. In theory, the high-temperature waste gas generated during coking can be used for many things, such as power generation and refining chemical products. The use of coking waste heat to burn bricks is only one of the least entry-level applications. Burning bricks requires the combustion of coal or charcoal to produce high temperature and high heat to sinter the bricks and finally burn the finished bricks. The temperature of the exhaust gas produced by coking is even higher than the temperature produced by the burning of charcoal, which is more than enough for burning bricks. Shi Xiong has seen a report of using the waste heat of coking to burn bricks. According to the information, the pass rate of bricks burned using the waste heat of coking is as high as 99%. The most important thing is that this kind of technology has been very common in previous lives. That's why Shi Xiong decided to scorch and burn a piece of refractory bricks. Chapter 36. Would one family? Hearing Shi Xiong's explanation, Kabulu sacrificed to look at the leader Lile, and both of them shook their heads with a wry smile. Obviously, they didn't understand the explanation of the strong bear. But they both believed in the words of the old Kabru offering sacrifices. This great bear might really have been favored by the sun god, otherwise, how could he know so much? He was not stupid before and put it aside. As far as what he is doing now, I have never heard of anyone among the Cherokee tribe or even the Indians who would do it. If the Supreme Sun had not given him guidance, who could this guy learn these things from? Shi Xiong saw the thoughts of the two highest-ranking people in these tribes, and said with a smile, "Lay leader Lile, Kabulu sacrifices. Now I explain nothing is useless. When things are done, you will know the Supreme Sun did God really point me out." Shi Xiong said this sentence with a gentle attitude, but the indisputable aura made the two highest-ranking members of the Gaoshu tribe silent immediately. At this moment, Wood hurried over from a distance. Mu Mu is the name of a tribe in the tribe. He is currently the oldest man in the tribe. He is almost 60 years old this year, not to mention the High Tree tribe at this age. Even if you look at the entire Cherokee tribe, they are definitely long-lived people. The main reason why Wood can live so much is that he never goes out hunting, and never participates in planting food. His only task in the tribe is to build houses or build weapons and furniture for the tribe. Well, if the tree is tall, if the wooden bowls and basins used by the tribesmen can also be called furniture, then wood is used for this kind of work. Yes, Wood is the highest carpenter in the tribe. And it's not just him. His 2 sons and 2 grandsons are now carpenters in the tribe. This craft has been passed down from the ancestors of Wood, and he also passed it on to his descendants. Because there is no need to go out hunting, the possibility of injury is avoided. In this era, once you get injured in hunting, it's okay to be slightly injured, but if it's a slightly more serious injury, then you can only pray for protection from the gods of the heavens. Even if you don't die, your vitality will be severely damaged. Lile, the leader of the tribe, is a living example. Because there is no need to grow food, heavy physical labor is avoided. Therefore, although Muju is almost 60 years old, it seems that his body is even better than the average person in his 40s. Master Guardian, can you come and take a look at us? We still don't understand the bellows you mentioned. Miu Miu's old face was a little red, as if saying this would mean it to him. A thing that drops points. But he couldn't help but say that when Mr. Guardian talked about how to build the bellows yesterday, he patted his chest and said that he would be able to build the bellows. The fact is that the wood that can build wooden houses and make wooden bowls and basins is completely defeated in front of this bellows. The shell of the box is easy to handle. Since the exchange of some tools from the Vasichus, some carpenters who were not easy to do are now much easier to do, but the cover in the box that can be moved freely is directly difficult. Who live with Mr. Miu? Looking at Miu's anxious and unwilling expression on others, Shi Xiong nodded his head understandingly. I blame this thing. When I told you yesterday, I might have missed some points. If he was so considerate. Miu Miu's face suddenly showed a smile, and his affection for Master Guardian increased again. Shi Xiong nodded at Lile and Hong Yun, and then followed the wood to that side. There is no need for Shi Xiong to stare at the digging and building brick kilns. It's easy to say that digging a pit can be done by anyone who has the strength to dig it. As for the brick kiln, Shi Xiong didn't intend to make it too complicated, as long as the house was built up and covered with mud and airtightness. When Shi Xiong came to the wooden house where he lived, he found his 2 sons and 2 grandsons were there. In fact, Muju is now a family of 4 generations. His great-grandson is 2 years old this year, as well as a 4-year-old great-granddaughter. Miu Miu's son and grandson's names are very interesting. In fact, his family's name is very interesting. It is like the name of Miu, which has been handed down from his ancestors. His ancestors, his grandfather, and father are all called Mutsu. After he dies, one of his 2 sons will also use the name Mutsu, inherited and became a new generation of big carpenters in the tribe. Miu Miu's 2 sons are called Cross Saw and Miu Plane, and his 2 grandsons are called Chisel and Bow Drill. It's not that a family doesn't enter the house, but this family is a carpenter's workshop that is alive and well. Is called such a strange name for a simple reason. On the day that Miu's eldest son was born, 2 Vasichus came from the tribe. The first woodworking tool for wood www.wuxiaspot.com, a woodworking saw was exchanged from Vasichus on the day of. For this new type of tool, Wood is very fond of, so he named the eldest son Horizontal Saw. Later, whenever Vasiksha came to the tribe, the Wood would exchange 1 or 2 tools from the white people, and then his second son and his grandson would all be named after these tools. It is said that every Indian has 3 names in this life, especially the right of clan name is a very sacred thing. It is given by tribal chiefs and priests personally, and this name will follow this tribe's life. But Miu's son and grandson do not have a proper clan name, or their proper clan name is called this name. Because the old Wood is really like a hard elm bump, no one can say to him, in his words, the name used by his son and grandson is more representative of their lives than any clan official name. In the end, these names were called that way, and they have been until now. When Shi Xiong came here, the wooden planks of the bellows shell had already come out, and the 5 of them were thinking about the slings of the air intake holes. A bellows has 2 air intake holes, which are respectively on the front and rear baffles of the shell. These air intake holes must use a lifting plate that can be moved freely, so as to ensure that when the air plate moves back and forth in the wind box, all the outside air is squeezed into the bottom box, and then the air in the wind box is discharged through the air outlet go with. Obviously, the hoisting board completely stumped the 5 of them. However, Shi Xiong couldn't help but twitch when he saw the wooden planks of the shell that they had punched out. Look at this plank, it's not much better than what a dog chews on. Chapter 37, 1. Keep it simple. Wood planer. I hope you can use the planer in your hand to plan these wooden boards to be flat. Our bellows needs 6 flat wooden boards as the outer shell. Note, it is flat, not like you made this one, a plank that is even more ugly than a dog chew. Ishikama said to Mu's second son very unceremoniously, which made Mu Xiao, who is not very good at words, ashamed, almost got his head into his crotch. For Shi Xiong's sternness, Mr. Muir didn't say a word for 5. It is indeed the bellows that the guardian said for them. It is simply too shocking. They dare not make a face to a guardian who can design such a magical thing, not to mention that the guardian's physique really makes people afraid to get angry. Looking back, Shi Xiong's face became calmer. He said to Wood's little grandson Bodril, "Bodril, do you know what your grandpa gave you this name? Remember, your name is Bodrils, and what are Bodrils used for? Bodrils are used to drill eyes." As he said, the stone bear squatted down and pointed to the square hole on the upper part of the tailgate and said, "You can rivet 2 thicker square wooden prongs above this hole, and then give the upper part of these 2 wooden prongs. Drill holes, then drill the top of the sling plate out of the holes, and then use a wooden rod to pass through these eyes. This sling plate will not be made. When the wind plate in the wind box is pulled back, the outside air will push off the sling plate and enter the inside of the wind box. When the wind plate is pushed forward, the air in the back half of the wind box will hold the sling plate, preventing the air from going out of this hole. It can only enter the bottom of the wind box along the vent at the rear end of the partition, and finally exit along the air outlet." Ishikama's explanation made Mu's eyes light up. He couldn't wait to ask, "Master Guardian, the dovetail wing plate at the bottom of the bellows does the same, right?" "That's right, the dovetail wing plate does the same, but the lifting plate moves up and down, while the dovetail wing plate moves horizontally. The principle is the same." "Haha, then I know how to make this bellows." Wood laughed openly. "Well, knowing how to do it is not enough. You must pay attention to the details. Our bellows is a tool that needs to be used for a long time, and there will be countless frictions between the wind plate and the shell, so the wood of the shell must be make it flat, otherwise this bellows will be a waste product. I don't think you, as the first carpenter of our tribe, would like to see that your work is a defective product, right?" Wood nodded and bowed in agreement, then turned his head and roared at his second son, "Mu Xiao, have you heard the words of Master Guardian? Hurry up and trim all these wooden boards for me. If there is any unevenness, Lao Tzu, break your leg." Well, Mu's remarks are definitely not said in Indian, but the meaning is roughly the same. It seems that whether it is in China or North America, Lao Tzu's beating his son seems to be justified. Before leaving, Shi Xiong poured the carpenter family's first bowl of chicken soup since he came to this world. "Wood, you must remember that in the future our tribe will need more and more tools, and these tools are inseparable from the support of you and your family. Therefore, when you make this bellows this time, you must summarize the experience in the production process, and keep these experiences firmly in mind. Craftsmanship is inherited, and this experience is a more important inheritance than craftsmanship. I look forward to the first carpenter of our Gaoshu tribe to become the whole in the future, the first carpenter among the Cherokee tribe and all our natives. Although the old Wood has lived for almost 60 years, how can he ever drink such a rich chicken soup?" So after Shi Xiong's bowl of chicken soup was poured in, the Mutsu family, including Lao Mutsu, immediately seemed to have blood. 2 days passed in a flash. The 1.5 meter diameter and nearly 2 meter deep pit on the east side of the tribe has been dug. Now a group of tribesmen are digging a fire path according to the instructions of the stone bear. This fire road leads directly to the stone house next to the big pit. The stone house is built entirely of stones, with a thick layer of mud on the inside and outside, and the roof is built with wooden planks, but there is a thick layer of mud under the wooden planks. The mud is covered by a few in the house. The stone pillars are supported on several slates, so that the heat generated when the bricks are burnt can be prevented from igniting the wooden boards. This house dedicated to fire bricks cannot be called a brick kiln at all, but there is no way, under these circumstances, being able to build such a stone house has reached the limit of the tribe. And Shi Xiong knew very well that if reading www.hukanshu.com really allowed these tribesmen to build a real brick kiln, then he himself might have to be broken down by these tribesmen asking questions. Anyway, this stone house can also burn bricks, and Ishikama has no plans to burn as many refractory bricks as it is enough, so this stone house will be ready for the time being. It is the big pit for coking outside that can be loaded with about 5 tons of coal at one time. When coking, the coal is packed in a large pit, and then the top is sealed with mud, leaving a flashing eye in the middle. Once the coal below is ignited, the flashing eye will be immediately sealed, and the coal will be deprived of oxygen, slowly refine into coke in the state. As for the fire path being excavated, it is specially designed to pour the waste heat generated during the coking process into the stone house. Before the focus of the fire, the dry refractory bricks will be stacked in the stone house. After the coking starts, the high-temperature flue gas generated by the coking will enter the stone house along the fire path to heat the refractory bricks, and finally these bricks are fired into refractory bricks. In fact, whether it is the big pit for coking or the stone house where refractory bricks are fired, they are all products of compromise. They are even simpler than the clay coke kilns and clay brick kilns used by the Chinese ancestors to make coking and bricks, but there is really no way. The first batch of coke and refractory bricks can only be made by this method. Keep everything simple. However, compared to this coking pit and the stone house, Shi Xiong still has something more primitive in his hand, that is, the clay furnace he prepared for the first steel making and the clay crucible made of kaolin. Looking at the humble stove in front of him that seemed to be set up during the children's house and the clay crucible that looked frightening, Shi Xiong himself couldn't help expressing a serious contempt for his Nkuama's craftsmanship. Chapter 38, The First Smelting. To be honest, this furnace and this crucible are really a bit horrible, because it needs to provide huge heat to the crucible. This kind of furnace has a small belly and big head. Originally, Shikama wanted to build this furnace into a rounded cone shape, but in fact, this furnace built with kaolin mixed with a certain proportion of clay and bone meal, at first glance, looks like an enlarged version of Nyu Baba. If there is an extra point on it, it is proper, the Baba of the Bull Demon King. As for the so-called clay crucible, after firing, it looks more like a frying spoon for a bite of cooking, and it is full of bumps and bumps, which corresponds to the Chinese allegorical saying "Pak is not called Pak." In the words of Shi Xiong's self-criticism, this is the typical high and low-handedness. At the old wooden house, I shaved other people's wood, but in turn, I looked at the thing I and Kuai-ma had made. The wooden planks that people shaved out of wood can be called works of art. But fortunately, the stove and the frying ladle crucible are in a tacit agreement. When the frying ladle crucible is placed at the mouth of the furnace, it can be regarded as a tight fit. I just don't know how it works. After the stove was completely dry, the old wood also made the bellows out. Not to mention, although the old carpenter encountered all kinds of difficulties in the initial stage of making the bellows, the final result of the bellows is still quite good. Not worse than the bellows next to the home stove that Shi Xiong used when he was a child. Of course, the size of this bellows is bigger. After all, this bellows is the key to supplying oxygen to the furnace. If it is smaller and the oxygen provided is not enough, the furnace temperature will not meet the requirements for melting pig iron. A lot of coal has been transported by the tribe. It is estimated that there are 8,000 caddies if it is not 10,000 caddies. So much coal is enough, and even coking is enough. Early this morning, all the tribesmen gathered together to watch Master Guardian steel making. The clansmen of the entire tribe have been blessed these days. No wonder this big man was chosen as the guardian by the Kabu sacrifice. This guy is really amazing. He only needs to go out and wander around once a day to ensure that he can hunt a bison or a big red deer, and there is always only one wound on the body of these prey, either in the heart part or in the neck part. It is absolutely a one-shot kill. Master Guardian kept his promise. which was praised by all the tribesmen. Of course, as the guardian can provide meat for the tribe every day, all the work he requested has been done by the tribe. A large amount of coal and iron ore are piled on the clearing in the middle of the tribe, next to some limestone and a wooden shed specially used for kaolin. Except for the kaolin under this wooden shed, there is the stove from the stone bear. After burning the coal with wood, even in late autumn, the area around the stove is still hot. That strange-looking clay pot is just like that on the stove, and there are a lot of black iron pieces in it. Speaking of these iron pieces, many people feel distressed. These iron pieces are all obtained after smashing those intact iron pans. The ghost knew why the guardian did this, and the iron pot was not kept, it had to be smashed. If these Indians understand the Chinese civilization, they will definitely put on this powerful guardian a big hat of violent heavenly things. But the pot has been smashed, and it's too late to say anything. I can only watch these iron pieces start to smoke in the earthen pot that is gradually turning red. To be honest, Shi Xiong really has never done this kind of work. When he was a child, he had seen how to make iron in a local blast furnace in the village, but he had never seen how to melt the pig iron. He can only do this based on imagination. Fortunately, the clay crucible he made is ugly, but it is really resistant to burning. The 5 men in the wood took turns pulling the wind box next to them, and the wind from the wind box exit entered the bottom of the furnace through the air duct, and immediately caused the coal flame to change from dark red to orange red, then yellow-white, and finally it became a dazzling white. For the temperature change corresponding to the change of flame color, Shi Xiong also has a more spectrum in his heart. As a cultural relics expert, he knows very well that before the thermometer was invented, in the practice of smelting metals, the ancients created a method of judging the temperature by observing the temperature and the color of the fire. Wood planer, I am optimistic about this color, this dark red flame. The corresponding temperature is about 600 degrees. The flame is now dark red, and the temperature at this time is about 700 degrees. Okay, do you see this flame color? The temperature of this red-orange flame is about 900 degrees. When the flame turns orange, it means that the temperature of the flame can reach 1100 degrees. Well, the temperature of the flame has reached white now. At this time, the temperature of the flame is about 1300 degrees. This temperature is almost the temperature I need. Mazao has become interested in smelting since he was given a meal by Shi Xiong. I'm reading www.hukanshu.com. He took the initiative to find Shi Xiong and said that he wanted to learn how to smelt. For the wood planer's request, Shi Xiong certainly wanted it. He was thinking of training specialized smelting talents in the tribe. No matter how good he is, no matter how much he knows, he needs manpower to do specific tasks. Even if you dismantle yourself, you won't be able to make 2 or 2 nails. Therefore, it is very important to train professional talents. Since Musha is willing to do smelting, Shi Xiong really doesn't mind teaching this guy what he knows. Musha's performance also made Shi Xiong very pleased. When he participated in this smelting for the first time, he raised the issue of the relationship between flame color and temperature, which is enough to show that this guy is a very caring person. So Shi Xiong told him what he knew about the relationship between flame color and temperature without reservation. Macau can be regarded as a cultural man in the tribe. Holding a piece of limestone and a slate, he wrote down some symbols that the stone bear could not understand. As the color of the flame reaches white, it means that the furnace temperature has reached more than 1300 degrees. But at this temperature, the crucible that looked a little bluffing has withstood the test of high temperature. Even if the whole body of this crucible has been burnt red, it still hasn't broken. As for the pieces of pig iron put in the crucible, it has already begun to slowly melt at this time. These iron pots exchanged from European colonists are actually gray cast iron. The melting point of this gray cast iron is about 1320 degrees, so when the flame starts to turn white, these gray cast iron fragments begin to melt. P.S. The new week has begun again, and Lao Mo desperately needs the support of readers' recommendation votes. Chapter 39, Finished Product. The pig iron fragments melted, and the next thing is easy to do. The next thing is nothing more than mixing with a kaolin stick made of kaolin plus bone meal, and then adding crushed pig iron particles to it. In fact, this time I used a crucible to smelt these pig irons. The steel filling method has to wait until the iron ore is smelted into molten iron before using it. To smelt such a small amount of pig iron now, it is naturally the most suitable to use the steel method. Seeing pitifulness in the sky, the tribe couldn't find a tool to stir the molten iron. In desperation, the stone bear had to fire a few kaolin sticks in accordance with the standards for fired refractory bricks, because only this kind of soil stick made of kaolin plus bone meal can withstand the temperature of molten iron. I just don't know if using this kind of soil rod to stir molten iron will produce other chemical reactions. But now Shi Xiong really has no choice. A very important step in the steel frying method is to continuously stir the molten iron to allow the sulfur, phosphorus, carbon and other elements in the molten iron to react with the outside oxygen, so as to reduce the carbon content in the molten iron and remove impurities. Purpose. Of course, adding pig iron particles to the molten iron is also a very necessary step in the steel frying method. It's just that the tribe doesn't even have a grinding disc. These pig irons can only be smashed into tiny particles with a hammer. Anyway, everything is really simplified, but it doesn't work if you don't. The conditions are here. The so-called Gaoshu is for cooking without rice, and this is the truth. As for how long it is to stir and how many pig iron particles are added to the molten iron, to be honest, Shi Xiong has no idea. In addition to keeping things simple, you have to rely on Meng. Anyway, when the pig iron began to melt, another bonfire was lit on the side of the stove. Under the order of Shi Xiong, several tribesmen put the fired kaolin molds on the bonfire to bake. This move made these people even more puzzled. They have roasted meat, corn and other grains, but they have never roasted something like this made of mud. Shi Xiong will not explain to them why they did this now. The mold must be heated before pouring the molten iron, otherwise you pour the hot molten iron into the cold mold, which will cause a tragic disaster. The mold has a 100% chance of exploding. In the end, Shi Xiong estimated that it was almost done, so he personally picked up one of the few iron spoons in the tribe and began to scoop out the molten iron from the cauldron. The yellow and white molten iron was quickly scooped out by the iron spoon, and then quickly poured into the kaolin molds that were roasted at a temperature of 600 to 700 degrees. The next step was to wait for the molten iron in these kaolin molds to cool. As for the heat treatments such as quenching and tempering, Shi Xiong can't take care of it anyway. He doesn't understand these heat treatment techniques, so he can only use this most primitive method to cast what he needs. The molten iron smelted after smashing the 3 large iron pans gave Shi Xiong a total of 3 plowshares, 2 tongs, a short machete, 3 spearheads and more than a dozen arrows. Shi Xiong also wanted to know how the performance of these things he had produced, but it takes a long time for the molten iron to cool down naturally, which is no shorter than the time required to melt the pig iron. So after all this was done, Shi Xiong ordered the fire to be put out. After arranging a few people to watch the molds where the molten iron was poured, he turned around and went back to rest. This small pot of molten iron consumed most of the day. The most important thing is that Shi Xiong was always worried during the whole process. His concentration was highly concentrated, which was also a great consumption. So when everything settled down, even Stone Bear couldn't hold it anymore. In contrast, the people who have been watching for a long time have been discussing with enthusiasm. For them, what happened today is something they have never seen or even imagined. The white flames coming out of the furnace, the little bit of molten pig iron, and the clansmen who were constantly stirring the molten iron with a long clay stick but were screaming and screaming all made them realize that they are today. What happened is really amazing. Apart from anything else, the ironware that could never be melted in their eyes turned into a pot of molten iron, which shocked them inexplicably. Many people in the tribe have witnessed 3 precious iron pots being smashed, then thrown into the earthen pot made of mud, and then burned and melted, and finally turned into strange-shaped objects in the mold. Therefore, most of the people in the tribe are discussing what the Guardian Sama finally made. and this kind of discussion went on all night. Early the next morning, the whole tribe began to lively again. Countless tribesmen who were aroused by curiosity all walked out of the house www.wuxiaspot.com and quickly gathered in the clearing in the middle of the tribe. Of course, they also saw the few on-duty tribesmen screaming and shouting. Sleep-like embarrassment. After a night of natural cooling, the molten iron in the mold has already been completely cooled down and adhered to the mold. Stone Bear was accompanied by a few people and walked over with a stone hammer. Yesterday, the Guardian's series of performances caused many people to spontaneously support him. Approached the molds and spit up, but there was no response. Shi Xiong lifted a mold on a flat rock with confidence, then raised his hammer and smashed it down. The mold made of kaolin plus bone meal shattered immediately, leaving a complete casting. These are a few arrows, which are the least valuable of this batch of castings. So Shi Xiong plans to use one of the arrows to do an experiment. Although during the smelting yesterday, the wood planer faithfully recorded all the key data such as the addition ratio, smelting time, mixing time and so on with the weird rich man, but Shi Xiong had no idea about the things he had produced bottom, so he needs to experiment. This arrow is about 5 centimeters long and is a flat, tapered arrow. The whole body is dark, and there are many mold particles on it. Ishikama took the arrow and rubbed it fiercely on the flat large rock, and quickly wiped off the black oxide on the side of the arrow. Of course, the large rock also left clear scratches. Li Lei, Jiao Naiu, Kabulu's sacrifice, and some prominent people in the tribe all gathered around the stone bear to watch the operation of the stone bear. Seeing that there were many scratches on the big hard rock by this small arrow, the faces of several people suddenly blossomed with joy. Chapter 40, Blood Drink, Dragon Slaying, the Rod of Ruling. Shi Xiong ignored the tribesman beside him. He picked up the arrow and looked at the wiped out place, with a smile on his face involuntarily. Without him, the silvery white light revealed from the part where the oxide was erased is a very strong proof of the material identity of this arrow. I am a piece of steel, real steel. Many people in later generations know that by distinguishing the color of metals, they can easily distinguish the difference between iron and steel. Whether it is pig iron or wrought iron, it shows a gray color, while steel shows a silvery white color. Although I don't know if the arrow in front of me is low carbon steel, medium carbon steel, or high carbon steel, there is no doubt that the color of the arrow has definitely confirmed that I didn't have a white hair yesterday, and I came out by myself. The thing is really steel. The stone bear laughed loudly, and then under the horrified gaze of a group of people, he raised the stone hammer again, and slammed it down at the arrow. Li Lei and Kabulu's sacrifice have all seen the process of stone bear smashing the 3 iron pots with this stone hammer, and they are very aware of the power of this stone hammer. An iron pan that is so big can't stand 2 hammers. Such a small arrow, won't it have to be shattered with 1 hammer? This is an iron arrow. There has never been an iron arrow in the tribe. Arrows made of animal bones and stones in the past are powerful. But where are the iron arrows? Iron tools are much harder than bone tools and stone tools. This is the common sense of everyone in the tribe. However, the stone hammer that smashed down with the exclamation of a crowd did not smash the arrow. The arrow was only slightly deformed. But whether it was the big rock underneath or the stone, a small hole burst out of the hammer's surface. This situation made a high-level member of the tribe exclaimed again. They had never seen such a hard iron tool. Ishikama is completely satisfied now. Everyone knows in later generations that whether it is pig iron, wrought iron, or steel, they actually have a common name, that is, iron-carbon alloy. It's just that the difference in carbon content results in huge differences in physical properties. Generally speaking, the higher the carbon content, the harder the iron-carbon alloy, but at the same time the lower the toughness. The carbon content of pig iron is more than 2%, so pig iron is very hard, much harder than steel, but similarly, pig iron is also very brittle, and some pig iron can even be broken when dropped. Wrought iron is an iron-carbon alloy with a carbon content of less than 0.02%. Wrought iron has a soft texture, good plasticity, and good ductility. It can be drawn into wire, has low strength and hardness, and is easy to forge and weld. As for steel, it is a general term for iron-carbon alloys with carbon content between 0.02% and 2.11% by mass. In other words, the hardness of steel is lower than that of pig iron, but higher than that of wrought iron. Similarly, the toughness of steel is lower than that of wrought iron, but higher than that of pig iron. In other words, steel is a metal with both toughness and hardness, so the use of steel is far greater than that of pig iron and wrought iron. If the carbon content of the arrow just now is too high, the arrow will inevitably be smashed when the hammer goes down. In the same way, if the carbon content is too small, this hammer will not break, but it will definitely flatten the arrow. But this arrow is not a big deal. It can almost prove that the molten steel produced by Shi Xiong yesterday is a medium carbon steel. Although it is impossible to determine what type of medium carbon steel this is, Shi Xiong knows that with this thing, whether it is to build weapons or build civilian products, it is enough. The great sun is here. The great sun bless us. We have succeeded. Shi Xiong turned around, holding the half-black and half-silver white arrow in his hand, and smiled and said to several tribal leaders. Then, he jumped on the big rock that was used as iron felt, raised the arrow in his hand high, and shouted at all the people around him, "My people, we succeeded. We successfully smelted a material that is better than iron. This is steel. With steel, our people will no longer worry about not having iron pots, and our soldiers will no longer worry about not having iron. Quality weapons are available. My people, please remember this day. This day is a day worth remembering for our tribe, because from this day, our tribe will enter a new level. Our life will get better and better." Although the people of the tribe didn't know what was going on, they couldn't stand the big pot of chicken soup from Shi Xiong. It was too fierce. All the people of the tribe were excited by his pot of chicken soup. The breakfast, full of meaty aroma and full of dancing, came naturally. The stone bear, in a good mood, ate a lot of meat. Of course, when he was eating, the people sitting next to him were all high-ranking tribes like Lilay and Kabilu. It's really amazing what this mighty and robust guardian has done in the past 2 days. Although they don't know how these cast iron tools are, they can turn 3 large iron pots into so many shapes. The different ironware, just this, is enough for the people of the whole tribe to regard a stone bear as an idol. Although there is no idol at this time, the people think so. The meat is stewed by a mixture of bison and venison. Unfortunately, there is no spice, and it has a little salty taste. This is really hard for the stone bears who are used to eating food for later generations. The most important thing is that there is no wine here. If you drink wine again, I'm reading www.hukanshu.com, can't really think of themselves as the sons of gods. But Shi Xiong knows very well that in the current situation where there is not enough food to eat, if he rebrewed, it would be a bit too unreasonable. But if you wait until the potatoes and sweet potatoes are harvested next year, you can make some sweet potatoes. Anyway, whether it's sweet potatoes or potatoes, they are both high-yielding crops. Just a few thousand caddies per mu of land is just like playing. After breakfast, Shi Xiong smashed all the remaining molds and took out the cast ironware. "Is this a knife?" Jiao Niu asked excitedly, holding the short knife. "Yes, this is a knife, but it hasn't been cut yet. As long as the knife is cut, this knife will definitely be a good knife," said with a faint smile. Jiao Niu is a person who likes weapons. Even a silly head knows this. Now he saw a steel knife. It would be strange if he didn't like it. But obviously this knife can't be given to him. After this knife is cut, if there is no accident, it should belong to leader Lilay. He is the leader of this tribe, so he naturally wants to have the best things, including weapons. But it doesn't matter. This first successful smelting has given both Shi Xiong and the wood planer experience. If you start smelting with iron ore in the future, more steel will be produced. At that time, if Jiao Niu likes delicate, then create a slender blood drink for him, and if he likes domineering, then create him a dragon slaying like a door plank. It's really not good, and it's okay to get him an 8-sided ruling rod. P.S. Bo to thank book friends 20171115152559 inches for 200 rewards. Chapter 41, Plowshare. Lile took the knife from the reluctant Jiao Naiu, and squeezed it. Then he smiled and said to the Kabru priest on the side, "This knife looks great, so I think this knife should be given to us, the most powerful warrior of the tribe. What do you say?" Kabulu looked at the stone bear with a smile, looked at her guardian, looked at the Son of God, and nodded firmly and said, "The chief, you are right. This knife should belong to our most powerful warrior, because he can use this knife to guard our home and hunt prey for the people. I also think this knife is a good match for you, my guardian." Hearing this, Shi Xiong was stunned, then nodded and said, "All right, since the leader and the priests think so, then I will accept this knife, but don't be greedy for any of you, and wait for us to follow up, to smelt more and better steel. I will personally create a better and more powerful sword for you. Ha ha, this knife is a memorial. I will keep this knife well." As he said, Shi Xiong handed the knife to the old wood aside, "Let the wood plane sharpen the knife, he has experience." Old wood took the knife with a smile. Shi Xiong did not pay attention to the knife anymore, but carefully picked up the plowshare of a curved plow, and looked at the plowshare with joy. Seeing that the guardian is not interested in the knife, but is very concerned about the strange-shaped ironware. Lile and Kabulu are very strange to worship. As the leader of the tribe, Lile asked his own questions in a timely manner. My lord, don't look at this thing in my hand as a weapon, but it's extremely important to our entire tribe. It's no exaggeration to say that there are 100 knives like the one just now. It's not as important as this plowshare in my heart." Plowshare? What exactly is this for? Hong Yun thought of what Shi Xiong had said to her, and asked thoughtfully. "This is a baby. Our tribe will have enough food next year. The key is this thing." Shi Xiong handed the plowshare to Lile. "This thing is a kind of farming tool that the Supreme Sun pointed me to. The key part, with it, coupled with other parts, then we can intensively cultivate our land like the Pueblo people. Once our farmland can be intensively cultivated, based on the climate and water conservancy conditions here, our tribe, the food in the area will increase exponentially, and our people will no longer have to worry about being hungry." Hearing Shi Xiong's words, Lile's eyes widened. His hands were a little trembling and he took the plowshare. After looking at it for a long time, he handed the plowshare to the Kabru priest beside him and asked, "Shi Xiong, guardian, with this thing, can our food really increase a lot?" "Yes, with this thing, if our tribe can cultivate according to the method I said, next year if our tribe's food production does not increase more than twice, I am willing to accept punishment." Hearing that Shi Xiong said so positively, Lile couldn't help but glance at his cousin Jiao Naiu. After all, Jiao Naiu was once the leader of a small tribe, and he still had some strategic vision. Jiao Naiu nodded and said, "The leader, the guardian is right. If our tribe's food can increase a lot, then our tribe can take in some of the surrounding tribes. As long as we can provide sufficient food, those who were once in the Gaoshu tribe, the separated tribe, will soon return. Once the number of our High Tree tribe increases, it means that the High Tree tribe has the qualifications to compete. And if it is really like the guardian said, our tribe's food can be year after year increase production, then the growth of our Gaoshu tribe will become an inevitable event." With that said, Jiao Naiu looked at Hong Yun and said in a respectful tone, "In addition, our Gaoshu tribe is the clan of the respected Kabru High Priest. Once we reach our strength, as long as Kabru High Priest can say a word for the tribe, our Gaoshu tribe can immediately become a member of the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance." Lei was overjoyed when he heard this. Hong Yun smiled and said, "Tao Naiu, your words are very reasonable. As a Kabulu priest, as long as our tribe has sufficient strength, I will speak for our tribe. This is my home after all. You are all my relatives." Hong Yun said this. Everyone around, including leader Lile, bowed slightly at Hong Yun. Actually speaking strictly, the Hong Yun who inherited the Kabulu sacrificial position is the highest leader of the Gaoshu tribe and the surrounding small tribes separated from the Gaoshu tribe. After all, The people who came out of the Cherokee royal court with the Kabru high priest back then were all members and subordinates of Kabru high priest, and they respected Kabru high priest at that time. Although it has been a long time since the Kabulu priest has not served as a high priest in the Cherokee royal court, the entire Cherokee family knows how noble the Kabulu priesthood is. www.wuxiasput.com. It is no exaggeration to say it. If Hong Yun is willing to return to the Cherokee royal court, she will immediately replace the current high priest and become the unique Kabru high priest of the Cherokee royal court. Ishikama is not very interested in this kind of thing. He pulled the old wood aside, and started drawing from a stone slab with a piece of limestone. Looking at the crooked and twisted plow structure drawing, Shi Xiong was also very dissatisfied. No way, his painter is still good, but he really hasn't painted with stones. Can you understand this structure diagram? Shi Xiong asked, a little worried. Old Wood almost pierced his head into the rock. Hearing the question from Master Guardian, he raised his head and shook his head with a veiled face. Wait, after this energy is relieved, I have to get the paper out for anything, Shi Xiong thought fiercely in his heart. In fact, Shi Xiong didn't think that the old wood that had never been touched with three-dimensional viewability could be understood at once, so he said helplessly, forget it, it's okay here in a while, I'll go to your house and have a good time, explain to you. You must create this thing as soon as possible. Once it is created, then you are the biggest hero of our entire Gaoshu tribe. Hearing this, Old Wood's head was like a chicken pecking at rice. Kuai-Yuanli may not be understood by many people in the era of the information explosion, but Shi Xiong is familiar with it. When working in the museum in the previous life, there were several sets of Kuai-Yuanli cultural relics from the Song, Yuan, Ming and Qing dynasties in the museum. As a cultural preservation expert at the museum, Shi Xiong has done cultural relic preservation work on those sets of Kuai-Yuan plows. Therefore, Kuai-Yuanli is no obstacle to Shi Xiong, unlike he even guessed it when he made steel. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, I Want to Tame the Bison. Shi Xiong certainly knows that Kuai-Yuan plow is composed of 11 parts, but when he explained to Old Wood carefully, he didn't dare to say so many at once. He was really afraid that Old Wood's head could not turn around. In fact, despite the fact that there are many parts of the Kuai-Yuan plow, it is not very difficult to actually make it, especially the wooden family has woodworking tools from Europe, and there is Shi Xiong, a man who is proficient in the structure of the curved plow. It only took 2 days to make a curved plow, was beaten out. When Shi Xiong installs the poured plowshare, which is the combination of the plow shovel and the plow wall, on the front end of the plow bed, a curved plow is even completed. Although no experiments have been carried out yet, Shi Xiong can already say with certainty that this curved plow is extremely successful. As long as it is put on a cow or a horse, it can immediately plow the farmland. It was only when Kuai-Yuanli was created, after the high-level cadres in the tribe expressed their rarity and surprise after seeing it, a problem appeared again. Kuai-Yuan plow was created, but what about the bull that pulls the plow? Although Kuai-Yuan plow can also be pulled by horses, judging from the rarity of the tribe's only 20 horses, Shi Xiong feels that the tribe would not allow horses to do this kind of work. Of course, the best animal for a Kuai-Yuan plow is cattle. A creature like a cow is not only powerful, but also has a stable temperament, and can finish the work without knowing it slowly. The problem is that in China, the cattle that pull the plow are all tamed cattle. Although there were cows in North America at this time, there were as many as tens of millions of cattle, and all of them were full of tendons, and they had endless strength. But those are bisons that have not been domesticated. These undomesticated bison, one by one is his sister's bull demon. Don't say let them pull the plow, you just want to get close to them. They don't give you a gallop, even if you look like a relative of the bull demon king. Master Guardian, you said this thing needs a cow to pull. Are you talking about the bison in the wilderness? Old Wood shook his head. I think this is impossible. How can the bison listen to us? What about pulling the plow? Those guys have been our food since ancient times. Let them work. This is more difficult than letting the Gaoshu surrender. We have no way to control the bison. Shi Xiong turned his head and looked at the babbling old wood, with a look of helplessness. I patronized the building of the Huayuan plow, but forgot the other most important thing. These years, the herd of bison in North America can't be tamed anymore. But the promotion of Huayuan is imperative, which is the foundation of everything. Without sufficient food, the Gaoshu tribe is at best a little quail hiding under the reputation of Kabulu sacrifice. Maybe they can live a leisurely life in the past few decades, but once the United States is founded, more and more whites will come from Europe continuously, and European whites with heat weapons will occupy an absolute advantage on this continent. After that, these North American Indians will be slaughtered like the whites slaughter the bison. If the Americans do not develop a strong enough force before the Americans become a climate, the American Indians will sooner or later be taken away by the Americans based on the characteristics of these North American Indians fighting in the nest. To develop a sufficiently large force, food is an indispensable foundation. Shi Xiong grabbed his messy long hair, and gritted his teeth one last time and said, "Just leave it alone." According to the method of building the Huayuan plow, you can build a few more Huayuan plows, the more the better. As for, pull the plow cow, I'll go find a way. Isn't it the American bison? What's so great? Even the black brothers in North Africa were able to tame primitive cattle as early as 6000 BC, so why couldn't they tame bison by themselves? Not to mention that I have mastered a kind of bull-tame weapon. As long as this thing is on the stage, there will be no bull that cannot be tamed. Even if the bison brother Naiu demon is here, I will be able to tame you. Shi Xiong did not realize that the stubborn character from the silly head had penetrated deeper and deeper into his original character. He just feels that if he finds the problem, he will solve it immediately. As everyone knows, in the eyes of outsiders, this guardian is becoming more and more vigorous and resolute. Found Li Lei again, and as soon as they met, Shi Xiong directly made his request. "Dear leader, I need some strong fighters to do something for the tribe." Li Lei put down the bone in his hand, wiped his mouth with his sleeve, and glanced at Shi Xiong strangely. "Great Bear, can you tell me what you want the warriors of the tribe to do?" "I am going to tame some bison." Shi Xiong gave the answer very simply, and then he explained, "Now the Huayuan plow has been built, but there is still a lack of animals for pulling the plow, and the best animal for pulling the plow is the cow. Of course, horses are also okay, but I think our people may not agree to use precious horses to pull the plow, so I am going to tame some bison to pull the plow." Hearing this, www.wuxiaspa.com. Rao Li Lei has been the leader of the tribe for so many years, and it is almost impossible to swallow a durian with his mouth open. After a long time, Li Lei's mouth closed, he swallowed dryly, and looked at the stone bear strangely. "Great Bear, are you talking nonsense? Tame those bison? How is that possible? Those bison are just our food. How can they be tamed? The Supreme Sun has already taught me how to tame these bisons, but I haven't made time. Now I have time, so I want to follow the instructions of the Supreme Sun to personally tame some bison." As soon as said these words, Li Lei stopped speaking immediately. In front of the Supreme Sun God, Li Lei was pious as if he was facing a nursing baby. "Well, how many fighters do you need?" "About 20 or so, and I need a cross saw to follow me." "Well, there is a fishing net bar in the tribe. I also need a few pairs of fishing nets." Li Lei hesitated, but finally nodded. "Okay. But you must ensure the safety of the tribe. These warriors are the most powerful warriors in our tribe. They can't lose anything because of these bisons." "Don't worry, dear leader, I am just leading these fighters to capture bison, rather than confronting a herd of bison. Moreover, when tame bison, I will stand in the forefront." Seeing the identification that Shi Xiong said, Li Lei said, "Okay, I will let Wolftail go with you. If you encounter anything, you can directly discuss it with Wolftail." Shi Xiong knew about Wolftail. He was one of the two warriors who followed Li Lei all day. He was a ruthless character. P.S. Boat to thank Desert Moon Spring 100 for the reward. Chapter 43, Female Bison. Wolf Tail is a man in his 30s. The main reason he has such a name is that he met a lone wolf when he first participated in a tribal hunt when he was 12 years old. Everyone knows that the lone wolf driven out by the wolves is the most terrifying killer in the entire wilderness, but the wolf whose tail is only 12 years old unfortunately encountered such a lone wolf. There was a life and death competition between man and wolf. In fact, before seeing the wolf's tail, none of the warriors in the tribe believed that the wolf's tail could survive under the fangs of a lone wolf. But by the way, the wolf tail is so cruel. At that time, the lone wolf bit the wolf's tail stubbornly, but the strength of the wolf's tail also came up. He was slamming the neck of the wolf with his arms, breaking the wolf into a bow-shaped one. At the same time, he bit the root of the wolf's tail. In the end, the lone wolf was killed by the tribal warriors who drove over. A large piece of meat was missing from the wolf's tail, but in the same way, he also bit the tail of the lone wolf abruptly. This kind of brutality is really rare, so when the previous generation of tribal leaders named him his clan, he named him after the wolf tail he bit off. With a strong force, Wolf Tail quickly became famous in the Gaoshu tribe and became one of the leaders of the tribal warriors, because he and Li Lei had been friends since childhood. When Li Lei was almost slapped to death by a black bear some time ago, Wolf Tail became Li Lei's guard without hesitation. In fact, Li Lei, who had already felt that he was dying at the time, even had the idea of imparting the position of the leader of the tribe to Wolf Tail. Wolf's tail is usually not very talkative, and a cold face with half a tattoo on it makes people shudder. But this guy is indeed a good warrior, and his prestige among tribal warriors is very high. This can be seen from the fact that he quickly assembled 20 strong tribesmen. And Shi Xiong took advantage of this gap and asked the cross saw to prepare a thick tree branch in the shape of a Y, at least as thick as a human thigh. In addition, he also asked for several fishing nets from his tribe. The successful creation of Kuayu and plow has made cross saw worship the guardian Shi Xiong to the extreme. In his opinion, such a complex and exquisite wooden tool could be made in the hands of himself and his father. It was entirely because of the guidance of Master Guardian. Therefore, the horizontal saw will not compromise the request made by the guardian. With these things, Stone Bear and a group of soldiers set off on horseback. Originally, the Stone Bear planned to go to the Bison Mountain to catch the bison, but not far out of the tribe, a group of people found a group of small bison herd of about 20 heads in the wilderness on the side of the road. The relatives of these cow demon kings are eating the withered grass in the wilderness leisurely. Although green grass is the favorite of cows and cows, in this season, even if it is hay, it is also a rare food in the recipes of cows and cows. Fortunately, there were no bulls in this small herd. There were only a dozen cows and 7 or 8 calves. When the mating season comes, the male bison usually group alone, while the female bison lives with her calf. The male bison will not live with the female bison for a period of time until the mating season comes. The target we need to start is the cows. As for the little calves, we don't want to start with them. The calves are of no use to us for the time being. Stone Bear and a group of soldiers stood 100 from the group of bisons, a few meters away, said that at this distance, these bisons would not be wary of Stone Bear and their group of bipeds. Remember, try to rush away from the cows as far as possible and place the cows alone. I don't want to provoke this group of bisons to give us a big tramp. It will kill people. Therefore, everyone must pay attention to it. Don't provoke the cattle. Also, when you find a single cow, prepare for an ambush as soon as possible. Our fishing nets are not strong, and one net will definitely not be able to hold them. Then set 2 more nets. Be sure to use fishing nets. The bison is completely netted. The other warriors drive away the other bison from the herd on horseback, mainly by intimidation. Don't go head to head with the bison. It is enough to scare the bison far away. I will lead 10 soldiers to capture the bison. Wolf Tail, once we successfully net a bison here, then the 10 soldiers you lead will immediately frighten the bison herd. Don't give the bison herd a chance to rescue. The wolf's tail nodded, and then turned his head to say a series of names. The warriors whose names were pronounced immediately ran to the side following the wolf's tail on horseback. Shi Xiong took the 5 remaining fighters, took the fishing net from the horseback, and then quietly touched a cow far away from the herd. As for the remaining 5 warriors, they waited on the spot with their horses and obeyed the further orders of Master Guardian. If you want to tame the bison, it's best to start with the calf, but the little calf couldn't pull the plow, and it would take a long time to feed it before it could start to work, so Shi Xiong aimed at the female bison this time. Compared with the grumpy male bison, the female bison has a much calmer temper, and the female bison is not as strong as the male bison, so it is easier to deal with. The most important thing is that once a female buffalo can be captured, it will not take long for the female buffalo to get down to work after putting the bullying weapon on the female buffalo. This lonely female bison may be due to having companions by his side, or it may be that it has not encountered any danger from birth to such an age. I'm reading www.ukenshu.com, so this female bison is very vigilant. Although the withered and yellow weeds are not as delicious as the green grasses, they can fill up their stomachs. Only by eating more weeds during the day can they regurgitate comfortably and carefully digest the food they eat during the day. So, the cow was lured by the weeds and left the herd unknowingly. Of course, the distance between it and the herd is not too far, only 40 to 50 meters, but in the eyes of Shi Xiong, this distance is enough for them to successfully capture this bison. As he approached the cow raised her head alertly, and several people immediately squatted down, hiding in the weeds that were mostly tall. When the female bison continued to lower her head to graze, Shi Xiong whispered an order to the other 3 fighters. The 3 fighters held a fishing net and bent over and headed towards the other side of the cow. After the 3 fighters arrived at their positions, Shi Xiong stretched out his right hand, spread his 5 fingers, and waved his hand. The wolf's tail, who was standing behind and waiting, immediately yelled, and rode straight into the horse with the other 10 fighters. The gap between this lone cow and the herd. The loud sound caused the bison herd to start a commotion, and the lone cow also stopped eating, shook his head and wanted to return to the herd. But it's too late. The wolf tail yelled loudly and they inserted into the open space between the lone cow and the herd in a short time. This made the cows begin to move far away, and the lone cow was ready after hesitating for a while, make a circle and return to the herd. But just as the cow started to run around in a circle, a fishing net suddenly came to face in the grass in front of him, which directly caught the bison net, and then, the second fishing net was also covered. Chapter 44. Buy one get one free. In the country where Shi Xiong lived before, even in ancient times, people knew that fishing nets were a good thing. This kind of net-like object woven with a string can not only fish in the water, but also can be used to catch some tall and powerful large animals. And compared to fishing nets are better at dealing with large animals. Although North American Indians used fishing nets to fish a long time ago, they only limited the use of fishing nets to fishing. They seemed to have no idea about other uses of fishing nets. Perhaps in their cognition, this kind of thing woven with a very thin string is very precious, and it is not strong. It is no different from using meat bones to beat a dog. Shi Xiong knows how effective fishing nets are against large animals. Just like the cow in front of him, after being caught by the fishing net that was covering its head, it just struggled forward and ran 2 steps before it plunged heavily on the ground. The binding force produced by the knotting of those seemingly weak ropes is beyond everyone's imagination. The weight of this female bison is definitely more than 1,500 kgs, but after being caught in a thin fishing net, no matter how hard it struggles, it can't get away anyway. Even if this female bison can break away a small piece of fishing net, more fishing nets entangle its body, and its 4 legs give this female bison a powerful force, but here it is thin. Under the fishing nets, there is nothing he can do. Don't look at the American bison being named the bison, but in fact this large herbivore is very timid. As long as you don't stimulate them to the point of desperation, these bisons usually run away when they are in danger. Even the most robust male bison. Only when there is no escape and life is facing a huge threat, These male bison will show their sharp double horns to any carnivore. So, when the wolf-tail and 10 men riding on the horse made a weird cry of ha-oo-oo, the little bison herd was scared and ran in the other direction. They may know that they have a companion left in place, but they are helpless. Perhaps the idea of dying Taoists and not dying poor Tao also prevails in the bison. Seeing that the herd of bison leave here far away, Shi Xiong looked at the female bison who was struggling in vain in the fishing net with peace of mind. This is a very sturdy bison, weighing absolutely more than 1,500 kgs, and his strength must be great. Unfortunately, in front of these two fishing nets, its strength is useless. Its 4 hooves were tightly entangled in fishing nets, which made it unable to stand up at all, and could only lie on the ground and struggle in vain. Wolf-tail brought the warriors here on horseback. When he saw a female bison was caught by 2 fishing nets, a dead man's face also showed a very surprised look. A group of 2-legged monsters stood beside him, which made the cow even more frightened. It's a pity that no matter how hard it struggles, the 2 fishing nets bound it tightly. After tossing like this for more than 20 minutes, the female bison confessed his fate and stopped tossing. It lay on the ground and panted hard, tears shed from its 2 huge bull eyes. Tie this guy's 4 legs. Pay attention. Tie the front legs together and the hind legs together, so that this cow will not have the ability to escape. Also, don't take off the fishing nets on it, just take it with you. In addition, hurry up and build a sledge. Such a big bison, we can't carry it back. Following a series of instructions from Shi Xiong, these soldiers began to get busy. They rode horses to the woods at the foot of the mountain, and quickly pierced a sledge with the thick branches of their arms. But at this moment, the stone bear guarding the female bison alone heard a series of noises in the grass over there. Just when he lifted the heavy bone spear in his hand, he was about to throw it out, his bull's head emerged from the grass. This turned out to be a small calf, and depending on its size, it is estimated to be 5 or 6 months old at most. Obviously, this little calf is the child of this bison. It didn't know that its mother was captured by the hateful 2-legged monster. It might just smell the scent of mother's sex, and then quietly smelled it and ran over. Seeing her child running over, the bison struggling violently again, still screaming moo in her mouth. And the little calf doesn't even know what is happening in front of him. It just keeps licking its mother, seeming to wonder why her mother doesn't stand up. The female bison's struggle may have exhausted the little strength it had just accumulated, but it still couldn't break free from the fishing net outside. In the end, the female bison could only accept her fate again and stop struggling, only to let out a cry of unwillingness. The little calf looked up at Shi Xiong, then plunged his head into his mother's arms and started to eat milk. Fuck me, is this bison also interested in buying one get one free? The scene in front of him made Shi Xiong feel happy. I'm reading www.whokenshu.com was sour right away, but in the end he still endured the sorrow in his heart and put the last fishing net in his hand on the calf. There is no way. Compared with the development of the tribe, compared with the future, this pair of cows and mothers can only sacrifice. Anyway, it's not about killing them, but just bringing them back to the tribe and changing their living environment. And compared to the dangerous wild, the tribe is safer. Although they will be enslaved by the tribe's people in the future, they are ultimately allowed to survive. Shi Xiong tied the 4 legs of the little calf with a rope, while trying to find a reason in his heart. When the wolf-tail brought a group of warriors back with the sledge, he saw this little calf and immediately became happy. As a senior soldier, this scene immediately made him understand what was going on. In fact, the tribe often saw this situation when hunting bison in the past. After the cow is hunted, the calf will still follow, and then the soldiers will have an extra harvest of the calf. Wolf's tail aside, raising the bone spear in his hand was ready to end the life of this little calf, but before his raised right hand fell, his wrist was grabbed by the stone bear's powerful hand. Wolf's tail, this little calf can't be killed. Keep it. When it's raised, there will be one more animal in our tribe, Shi Xiong said with a smile, but his tone was full of indisputable affirmation. The wolf's tail tried to struggle, but found that his right hand seemed to be held down by a thick tree, and he didn't move. Wolf's tail's face changed slightly, and finally he nodded. Shi Xiong released his hand and said loudly, "Go, let's bring these two bison back to the tribe." Chapter 45, Overlord Dabo. A living bison and a living calf made the whole tribe boil again. Where did the clansmen of the Gaoshu tribe have seen a bison captured alive? The bison has been one of the main foodstuffs of North American Indians for hundreds of years, even tens of thousands of years. When the warriors of the tribe go out hunting, once they find the bison, they kill them all and then bring them back to the tribe to share the beef with the tribe. No one will bother to bring a living bison back to the tribe. Now the two bisons, one big and one small, have become truly Western sceneries in the tribe. In the face of the boiling tribe, the leader of the Gaoshu tribe, Lile, and the Kabilu sacrifice cannot help but smile bitterly. This strong bear can really toss. It hasn't been 10 days since they came to the Gaoshu tribe. As a result, the tribe has been everywhere in the past few days. It seems to be celebrating the Green Valley Festival. But thinking about the true identity of the guardian, Lile and Hong Yun could only sigh slightly. In fact, since the first 2 days, with the success of steel making and the production of Kuiyuan plows, Hong Yun and Lile have completely believed that this great bear is really the son of God. After all, these things he had come out were really unheard of and unseen. If it weren't for the Supreme Sun to instruct him, how could he suddenly have so many things? After all, this great bear was a fool before he came to the tribe, but most of the tribe people within a few hundred miles around it knew it. Now this former fool suddenly knows so many things that no one understands, and his head is obviously not stupid. This kind of change can only be done by the Supreme Sun God. Hard Bones, Rabbit Mouths and Two Small Tails followed Shi Xiong. This time they went out to catch the bison. They didn't have a chance to follow. Now they caught back 2 bisons, one large and one small, and they were still alive. This made him alive. They are very rare. The cow has not untied the rope tied to her body and the fishing net has not been taken off. The little calf is loose, but this little calf, which is at most 6 months old, has seen this situation. He was trembling, afraid to leave Mother Naiu's side. Even if the mother cow is tangled up and down like a zongtsai, in the eyes of the little calf, her mother is the indomitable protective umbrella. Hard Bones and Rabbit Mouth are standing in front of this little calf and touching this little calf. This made the scared little calf even more frightened, but he couldn't escape the clutches of these two-legged monsters, so he could only yell moo moo, seeming to express protest in his eyes. Seeing that these 2 little tails really liked the calf, Shi Xiong smiled and said, "How about, let this calf be raised by you two? Can you two raise it?" Hearing this, the rabbit's mouth stopped touching the soft fur on the top of the calf's head, turned his head and asked the stone bear excitedly, "Guardian, can this calf really be kept by us?" The Hard Bones on the side said disdainfully, "Does this still need to be asked? Since the guardian said so, then this calf must have been raised by me." "Hey, Rabbit Mouth, do you know how to raise this calf?" "I don't know," the rabbit said with his head down, "but it's Hard Bones. Do you know how to raise it?" "Of course, I don't know." Hard Bones made a grimace with his mouth tilted, "But Master Guardian knows. Why should he let the 2 of us raise them?" Seeing the 2 little guys bickering there, Shi Xiong's mood slightly improved. Muko came over with a steel bar of the thickness of chopsticks. This steel bar was actually used by Shikama as a tongs, but now that he has caught 2 cows, then a pair of tongs must be removed. If you want this cow to be subdued, a bullnose ring is an indispensable thing. As long as you put a bullnose ring on a cow's nose, let alone the cow, even if it comes to a bull, you have to be honest and obedient. Bullnose ring is the artifact that Stone Bear intends to tame the bison. No matter how irritable a cow is, as long as he puts this thing on the tip of his nose, he must be honest. The handle of this tongs is the material that Shi Xiong prepared to make the bullnose ring. A tongs are more than 1 meter long and cut into 4 sections to make 4 bullnose rings. In full view, Shi Xiong cut the handle of the tongs into 4 sections, and then bent them into a C shape. The original discussion has gradually subsided, and everyone is curious about how Master Guardian tamed this female bison. Come on, come here and 3 people help me support this cow. Let its neck get stuck on this branch, and then tie its horns with a rope so that it can't break free. Shi Xiong faced the people standing around, said the soldiers. 3 warriors with big arms and round waists stood up immediately, and then amid the constant moo sound of the female bison, and under the a little desperate gaze of the little calf, the 4 big men abruptly lifted the bison, and then let it go, in front of the Y-shaped tree branch that had long been buried deep underground. The 4 big men including Shi Xiong made the cow stand up, but because the cow's 4 hooves were still tied, the cow couldn't run even if it was so angry. Wolf's tail also came over on its own initiative. According to Shi Xiong's instructions, he pulled the bull's head and twisted his neck into the center of the branch. A large handful of hay was placed under the neck, and the bull's head was directly cushioned. When putting the nose ring on the cow, don't let the cow lower his head, but turn his head up, so that the cow has no strength to resist. Ishikama released his hand, took the 2 ropes, and then completely tied the cow's horns and 2 tree branches together. For safety's sake, he wrapped several ropes around each horn, and after he was sure that the cow could not break free, he let the cow's 4 hooves loosen. After releasing the 4 hooves, the cow can only stand there honestly. The horns were firmly tied to the branches of the tree, and its head couldn't move at all. www.wuxiaspot.com could only stand there with its head up. The next step is to put on the nose ring. As an associate researcher of a museum in his previous life, Shi Xiong certainly knew that according to archaeological discoveries, the earliest bull nose ring in China should have appeared in the late spring and autumn period and warring states period. It was designed by the working people in ancient China to prevent people from losing their temper when they were tired, a kind of tethering device that comes out. As we all know, cows are very savage. In practice, the ancestors of China explored that the nasal septum of the cow was thin and full of nerves. As long as the nasal septum of the cow was held and stimulated, the cow could feel pain and obediently. They concluded that a metal ring was passed through the nasal septum and sheathed. You can take the bull on the rope, and this is the bull nose ring. Although it is a relatively simple task to wear a bull nose ring for a cow, it is also very particular. First of all, the part of the cow's nose ring hole is in the middle of the cow's nasal septum, because there is an irregular light white spot larger than mung bin in that part. When penetrating, the position must be grasped accurately, not too high or too low. Wearing the upper part of the cow's nasal septal cartilage is not very sensitive to traction nerves, and is less responsive to training and service. Wearing too much lower, the cow's nose will have a shorter service life, and it is easy to pull the cow's nose. Secondly, the age of the calf wearing the nose ring should be between 10 months and 1.5 years old. Large cattle can generally wear the nose at 10 months or 12 months of age, and small cattle can be postponed to about 1.5 years of age. It is said that this cow is already this big, and wearing a bull nose ring is no longer appropriate, but Shi Xiong can't help it. What he lacks is time now, and he can't wait until the little calf grows up to wear a bull nose ring. So today he can only make a strong bow on this cow. How come this sounds so evil? Chapter 46, The Need to Tame Bison. When Shi Xiong was in his hometown when he was a child, he had seen the second grandfather next door put a bull nose ring on a cow more than once. The second grandfather was a veterinarian in the village, putting bull nose rings on the calves in the village and surrounding villages, and replacing the bull nose rings on the old cows. Basically the second grandpa does it. To be honest, putting on a bull nose ring is a very inhumane thing, but there is no way. First, cattle are not humans. Humanity seems to be of no use to cattle. Second, cattle were extremely important animal powers in ancient times. Even cattle's lives are more expensive than human lives, so you must be honest. For real work, this bull nose ring must be available. Therefore, although Shi Xiong has not done the work of putting on a bull nose ring himself, he has seen it many times and knows how to put on a bull nose ring. He was standing in front of the cow tilted its head up, and the horns were fixed to the branches of the tree, which made it immobile at all. At least the part above the cow's neck was really immovable. Maybe it felt that something bad was about to happen to it, Or maybe it felt that it would be enslaved forever by these two-legged monsters in the future, so there were tears in the big eyes of the cow again. If I put it aside before, Ishikama in this situation would never get rid of it. But now, he just sighed slightly in his heart, and lifted the steel cone in his hand. This was cut off by the other handle of the tongs that had been taken apart. Shi Xiong first looked at the cow nose, and found that in the middle of the cow nose septum, there was a small white spot that was not much larger than mung beans. This discovery made Shi Xiong somewhat relieved. The cattle in this world are indeed a family. The North American bison is the same as the scalpers and buffalo in Asia. This part is weak. Seeing the part clearly, Shi Xiong put the sharp steel cone on that part, and all the people around him stared at it, and there was no sound in the huge open space. Then Shi Xiong exerted a slight force, and accompanied by the cow's tragic moo, long cry, and the violent tremor of the cow's body, the steel cone instantly passed through the cow's nasal septum. A trace of blood immediately it flows out along the steel cone. Almost all the clansmen around uttered a wow, and then subconsciously touched their noses one by one, as if the awl had been pierced into their noses just now. As for the little calf, it shuddered even more, and then pulled it down with a fresh and hot poop. Shi Xiong pulled out the steel cone, and immediately picked up the C-shaped bullnose ring on the side, and directly inserted one end of the opening into the hole just punched out. After the bullnose ring penetrated the middle, Shi Xiong, as soon as he put his hands hard, the bullnose ring that was originally open was closed. Let's put the cow's head down, but don't untie the horns for now. Hurry up. Where's the grass you prepared? Get it quickly. Although it was only a short effort, the stone bear who did this kind of work for the first time also sweated profusely. After all, putting a bullnose ring on a cow is really cruel. The hay that was under the cow's neck was removed, and the cow's head returned to its most natural posture. Kuema was holding a large handful of corn stalks, sweet potato seedlings, pea seedlings, and some withered weeds. Ran over. Ishikama took a hand and handed it to the cow's mouth. The cow smelled it, and immediately opened his mouth and began to eat. There was a burst of cheers from the people around. Shi Xiong said to Kuema, "Wait until the cow's nose is no more bleeding, then unlock the horns." By the way, before unlocking the horns, the cow's nose ring should be tied with a rope. This way, all the cows will be loosened, as long as there is that rope. Now, this cow can't run. Give this cow more grass in the past 2 days, and after 2 days, the cow's nose will heal completely. Then this cow will be able to do what we call. Whether it is the cow with the nose ring or the little calf, there is someone to take care of it. So Shi Xiong is very relieved. Lile and the high-ranking figures of the tribe, such as Hong-Yun, Jeoniu, Bigfoot, etc., all came together. Although Lile's body looks a little unwell, he has been able to change from not being able to slide a pole in the first place. Being able to walk is enough to show that his body is getting better. Lile got close to the cow and looked at the bull's nose ring with some bloodstains for a long time before turning his head and asking, "Guardian, can this bison be completely obedient with just such a ring?" Although the other people did not ask, the questioning and disbelief on their faces were clearly revealed. I say it's useless now. When the wound on the cow's nose is healed, you can see how this strong bison is controlled by this little iron ring. Shi Xiong said that he was very confident. Although several senior executives were still a little skeptical, no one asked again. Hong-Yun said, "Guardian, if you can tame the bison with this method, does that mean that we can also use this method to tame the bison in the future?" Shi Xiong nodded affirmatively. "Yes, this method can be copied infinitely. However, if you want to tame the bison, the calf is best." Although the adult bison can be tamed, the process is a bit troublesome. The calf is so tame. The Bigfoot on the side asked puzzledly, "Guardian, if we want to eat beef, even if we let our soldiers go out hunting, why should we tame these bison?" When Jiao took the remnants of the long-hair cattle tribe to get through the Big Bend, this Bigfoot came to greet him. So he was the first Gaoshu tribe that Stone Xiong knew. www.wuxiaspit.com. Bigfoot and Lili are brothers and Hong-Yun's uncles. They have a high status in the tribe. The most important thing is that since Stone Bear and the others came to Gaoshu tribe, Bigfoot has really taken care of them, so Shi Xiong respects him very much. Hee, Uncle Bigfoot, taming these bison is a very necessary thing for us. The cow is an animal with very strong strength and good endurance. If we can tame the bison, then our people will. There are many more powerful assistants. Once this bison is tamed and can obediently listen to the words of our people, then whether it is plowing the land, pulling a cart, or doing other tasks that require energy, a cow can definitely top 5. One of the most powerful warriors. We kill a cow and eat meat for only a few days at most, while a tamed bison can do 10 or even 20 years of work for us. Therefore, it takes far to tame bison, far more cost-effective than killing and eating meat. Several people looked at the muscular bison again and nodded involuntarily. In addition, once the bison we tamed has formed a certain scale, then if we encounter an invasion by foreign enemies, the bison can become a powerful weapon. Think about it. If we face a lot of enemies, we can rely solely on our warriors. Simply cannot defeat the enemy, but we have dozens or even hundreds of tamed bisons. Once we gather these bisons and light their tails, let these bisons charge against the enemy collectively, then can you imagine the end of the enemy? As soon as I said this, the faces of several people changed drastically. In addition to Hong Yun, they have participated in the hunting of bison more than once. And of course they have seen the horror scenes of hundreds of cattle and even thousands of cattle. P.S. I would like to bow to thank you for the reward of the Big T of Imperial Capital 500. Chapter 47, Sweet Dreams. Historically, before white Europeans entered the North American continent, the conservative number of bison on the North American continent exceeded 60 million. Before the Americans began to move westward in the early 19th century, there were still more than 10 million bisons living on the entire North American continent. The largest mammal in the North American continent provided enough for millions of North American Indians' meat. It can be said that bison plays an irreplaceable role in the lives of North American Indians. In fact, since ancient times, many tribes of North American Indians have worshipped bison very much. Even if they hunted the bison, they stripped the skin of the bison to make clothes, tents, river crossings or rafts for fishing, and they ate the fleshy belly of the bison. The bones were used to make weapons, bone knives, and even pipes. Tendons are used to make bowstrings, but North American Indians still admire bison very much. It is precisely because bison is so important to North American Indians that many North American Indian tribes regard bison as an animal symbol of the power of the sun. It's just that in the past these Indians only knew about hunting bison, but they never thought of tame bison. The same is true of the Gaoshu tribe. Because the Gaoshu tribe is located in the southeast of the North American continent, they do not worship the bison like the Indian tribes living in the Midwestern prairie. But the people of the Gaoshu tribe do not regard the bison as important. But when Shi Xiong talked about the importance of tame bison, whether it was Lile or Hong Yun, he immediately realized that bison was more important. The most important significance of this is that the hordes of tame bison can be used as weapons, and they are the kind of weapons that make the enemy unstoppable. This is simply too important. The social systems of North American Indians and Central and South American Indians are very different. In Central and South America, the Indians have formed a civilization and a country, and their lives are much better than their compatriots on the North American continent. But in North America, hundreds of Indian tribes practice cruel jungle laws. Because of this fierce competition, the Indians in North America have never formed a unified civilization and political power. Here, a big fist is the last word. The Cherokee lived well in the Great Lakes region, and they were even once a member of the Iroquois League. But because the fists were smaller than others, the other tribes drove the Cherokee away abruptly. If our ancestors would tame these bisons and be able to form a herd of hundreds of bisons, then who would be afraid of the Iroquois in Delaware? Even now, as long as we can master a domesticated bison herd, let's not be afraid of all the Chicashas here. Lile and Jiao looked at each other, and they both found the meaning in each other's eyes. This kind of secret technique of bull pounding must never be known to other tribes. The eyes of the two changed again, but they also understood the meaning of each other's eyes again. Shi Xiong didn't have the mind to guess the thoughts of these two people. He tossed all day. To be honest, he was also a little tired, so he planned to go back and rest early. The evening meal surprised Shi Xiong. It turned out to be a long-lost corn pumpkin porridge. But when you think about it, it's no wonder that the history of growing corn in North America is much earlier than in the Old World, and pumpkin is also the origin of America. It is the hunter's month in the Eastern Cherokee custom, but as the moon gradually becomes rounder, the beaver moon is coming soon. In Cherokee custom, the day of the full moon of each month is the beginning of a new month. There are 12 full moons in a year, so after the 12 full moons, one record can record what happened in the past year. The hunter's month is October, and the beaver month is November. There are still a few days before the beaver month. That is to say, Stone Bear estimates that it should be the beginning of November in the Gregorian calendar. The ripening season of pumpkins is in October. The High Tree tribe may be late when they planted pumpkins, so it is not surprising that pumpkins mature in early November. Although this polenta is not boiled with cornmeal, the corn kernels in it are just smashed and used to make porridge, but with the addition of sweet pumpkin, this big bowl of corn pumpkin porridge has a taste of later generations. Thanks to the strength of this new body, Shi Xiong now has a lot of appetite. The wooden bowl he used was the size of a human head, and it would be a proper sea bowl when placed in later generations, but the stone bear drank the 3 bowls in a row and it was still a little bit more interesting. Wiped a handful of the residue of polenta on the corner of his mouth, and then he hiccuped comfortably. If he could do this every day, this little day would actually be pretty. But although this corn pumpkin porridge is delicious, the corn squash inside is really a bit squeaky, which greatly affects the original deliciousness of corn pumpkin porridge. So for the sake of his taste buds and appetite, Shi Xiong decided to grind the stone out. Stone mill is actually very easy to do. Compared with steel making in tame bison, the difficulty is much simpler. The stonemason of the reading www.hukanshu.com tribe can easily do it. The most important thing is that as Li Lei and Hong Yun see the benefits of taming the bison, there will be many more large animals in the tribe. Even if a stone mill with a diameter of 1 meter is made, a cow can easily pull the stone. Grind the circle. With a stone mill, can cornmeal, flour, and soy flour be far away? Can cornmeal pot stickers, big white steamed buns, noodles, bread, tofu and various soy products be far away? Plus, once the tamed bison gives birth, can the milk be far behind? They say that there will be bread and milk, and Shi Xiong feels that he will soon be able to enter a well-off life. When sleeping at night, Shi Xiong had a sweet dream. In the dream, all the delicious foods he had eaten in the previous life were placed in front of him. What he ate was a pleasure. Then after waking up in the morning, Shi Xiong found that he had lost a lot of hairs. However, the food in my dream is really good. This made the stone bear who just woke up in a good mood. But this good mood didn't last long. He had just washed his face while humming "I'm so happy today." The water stains on his face hadn't dried up yet, so the rabbit's mouth ran in a panic. Guardian, Kuema and Bone have a fight with the wild fox, and the wild fox has several helpers. Both Kuema and Bone have been beaten and bleeding on their faces. Go and have a look. Hearing this, Shi Xiong's heart was inexplicably choked. The fast horses, the hard bones, and the wild foxes belonged to the long-hair cattle tribe before. They were all tribesmen who survived the last battle. They came to the Gaoshu tribe together. They should have been united, but suddenly they fought in a nest. Up. Chapter 48, Don and number 039:T persuade you to do it. The long-hair cattle tribe was miserable. It was really miserable. Although it had not been exterminated, there were still 22 people left in the 100 or so people. In fact, this was not much different from extermination. It is said that they finally went to the Gaoshu tribe, and they also accepted the remnants of the long-hair cattle tribe, so the people who originally belonged to the long-hair cattle tribe should support each other even more. But facts are always more skinny than ideals. Among the remaining 22 people in the long-hair cattle tribe, only tall cattle, fast horses, bobcats, hard bones, wild foxes, and stone bears are warriors. Among the remaining 16 people, there are 3 young women and the oldest is not 10, 13 years old. After coming to the Gaoshu tribe, the 3 young women and children quickly merged into the tribe. For North American Indians, young women and children are the most popular. But Gaoshu and their 6 fighters were divided into 3 gangs. The 2 adult warriors Gaoshu and Lynx actively integrated into the warriors of the Gaoshu tribe. Even if Gaoshu was the leader of the long-hair Naiu tribe before, the man had to bow his head under the eaves. He wanted to survive in the Gaoshu tribe. If you go down, you must abandon your previous identity. As the most direct descendant of Gaoshu, the same goes for the Bobcats. The situation of Shi Xiong is quite special. He is a self-reliant group. Of course, his childhood friend Kuima and the hard bones he joined later are now headed by Shi Xiong. And the wild fox, he chose to be close to Lilei's prostitutes. Ishikama himself doesn't have any impression of the wild fox, but the memory from this body makes him very uncomfortable with this guy. Silly Head has been a bit silly since childhood. So my friends when they were young used to make fun of silly heads, except for Kuema who stood firmly next to the stone bear since he was a child. The other children in the long-hair cattle tribe who were about the size of Silly Head were reluctant to approach Silly Head. Among these, the wild fox has been the most truthless bully and foolish head since childhood. The wild fox is not actually his clan's proper name, but his nickname when he was a child, just like a Silly Head. From his nickname, you can tell that this guy is a very cunning person. He is 1 year older than Silly Head, and Silly Head was the worst bully by wild foxes when he was a child. Later, the body of the Silly Head opened up, and he looked like he was not losing his strength. The wild fox knew that comparing his strength with the Silly Head was like a silly head shaking the tree, so he stopped bullying the Silly Head blatantly, but all kinds of targeting the Silly Head. However, his conspiracy has never been broken. Anyway, looking at the 16-year life of Silly Head, he has been bullied by wild foxes for more than 10 years. Even Shi Xiong didn't understand where the Silly Head offended the wild fox, and why he had been bullied by him for so long. However, since receiving this body, Shi Xiong has no plans to care about the previous things. After all, the soul is different, and Shi Xiong now doesn't have the time and mood to clean up a wild fox that is similar to the primitive man. It is not good to say that it is really a bit of a price to clean up the wild fox. So after Shi Xiong came to the Gaoshu tribe, he never paid attention to the wild foxes. As a result, I didn't expect this guy to dare to attack his own people. Now the entire Gaoshu tribe knows that there are 3 tails behind their buttocks: fast horses, hard bones and rabbit mouths. These 3 people are the Guardian's little followers. But you are now attacking fast horses and hard bones. It is clear that I did not take my identity as the guardian of the Cabra sacred. Who gave you such courage? Was embarrassed, coupled with the memory of the Silly Head. This made Shi Xiong really upset. But the current stone bear is not the Silly Head he used to be. After getting angry, he immediately realized that something was wrong inside. According to the cleverness of a wild fox, he would not do such a stupid thing, but he just did it. To say there was no ghost in it, Shi Xiong himself didn't believe it. But the question is, where does the wild fox come from so courageous to provoke himself? Who is behind him? Many thoughts circulated in Shi Xiong's mind, but in the end Shi Xiong realized that he didn't have any good way to deal with it. A person who can instruct the wild fox to provoke him has an extraordinary position in the Gaoshu tribe. Is it Bigfoot? After all, the wild foxes went to Bigfoot as soon as they came to the Gaoshu tribe. Shi Xiong immediately shook his head and denied this speculation. Although they are not particularly familiar with Bigfoot, they usually take good care of themselves, and Bigfoot doesn't look like that kind of gloomy person. After thinking about it again, Shi Xiong realized that he had no clue, so he laughed mockingly, raised the bladed machete, took the rabbit's mouth and walked out the door. The short machete was polished yesterday by a wooden plane, and it was sent to Shi Xiong last night. Since it's unpredictable, let's not think about it. What is there to ponder? Lao Tzu is now the guardian of Cabra sacrifice anyway, which has been recognized by the entire Cherokee tribe. Moreover, Hong Yun and Li Lei have already believed in another identity of their own, the son of www.wuxiaspa.com plus their own tall man, dealing with a wild fox. If you can give back to his sister's thoughts, that would be great. I'm too sorry for my current identity. If you dare to brush Lao Tzu's face, then you have to be prepared for your face to be peeled off by Lao Tzu. Sometimes it's better to use force or force to overwhelm people than to seduce people. Isn't there a saying in the internet that used to say that in the past life, Shi Xiong didn't have the capital to others in the previous life, but this life is different. I care about who is standing behind your wild fox, and I will you first. Hit the small ones, don't worry about the old ones not coming out. If the old one still dares to domineering, the big deal is to do it with the old one. In this world where the weak and the strong eat the strong, it makes sense to have a big fist. I dare to beat my little brother, I don't beat you. I think I'm not hard enough. As soon as he left the house, several familiar clansmen outside greeted one after another. It is true that the Guardian Lord has made too much noise these days, and the Stone Bear has also explained it clearly, so the clans of the Gaoshu tribe basically know what the Guardian made these things for. This is all for the sake of the people to live better. Therefore, the people of the tribe now all like this Guardian who looks very safe and very smart. However, these tribesmen who said hello suddenly discovered that the face of the normally and kind Guardian did not seem to be right today, especially when they saw the shimmering machete in his hand. His face suddenly changed. Stone Bear with a rabbit mouth strode towards the wooden house where Kuma lived, and behind him, the news that Guardian is going to kill quickly spread throughout the Gaoshu tribe. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Conflict. Kuwema and Hard Bones lived together after they came to the Gaoshu tribe. Although Kuwema was married and had children, his pregnant woman and his 1-year-old son died under the Chikasha's butcher knife during the extermination battle. The Hard Bones were only 13 years old this year, and their family members died in that battle. In addition, both of them are now Shi Xiong's followers, so the two of them lived together. The wooden house they lived in was some distance away from the wooden house of the Stone Bear. After the Stone Bear became the guardian of the Kabul sacrificial house, he moved to the side of the big wooden house where the Kabul sacrificial house lived, and the Shaggy Cattle tribe's people separated. At this time, Kuwema and their wooden house were in a mess. Kuwema and Hard Bones were lying on the ground. The animal skins and clothes were covered with dust. I don't know how many times this was formed after rolling on the ground. Jiao Naiu and Link stood aside. Their faces were angry, but they didn't dare to do anything, because opposite them, 4 or 5 men from the High Tree tribe were standing. And not far away, a figure was pulling the female bison towards the Gaoshu tribe's chamber, and the bull screamed moo moo when it was pulled, leaving a string of blood stains clearly visible on the ground. Needless to say, the cow that has just been put on the nose ring for a day has not been pulled so bluntly, and the wound that has just healed may be torn apart again. The scene in front of him immediately caused the nameless fire in Shi Xiong's heart. If he puts aside his previous life and encounters such a situation with his personality, he will definitely judge the situation in the first time, and then he will calmly watch the crowds watching the fun, even if he is angry. But now, even if he wants to suppress the anger in his heart, he is always unable to suppress it. Although silly heads are silly, but fools often have a characteristic that they don't know if it is a bit or a shortcoming, that is stubbornness. Now the Stone Bear with 2 soul characters can clearly judge that the present form is not good for him. After all, there are 5 or 6 people on the opposite side. Judging by the actions of Jiao Naiu and Bobcat, they estimate I won't do it either. Can you deal with those 5 or 6 people alone? Don't forget, in the battle of the Shaggy Cattle tribe, the silly head was killed by 6 Chikasha warriors. But Shi Xiong is still going crazy. He first walked quickly to the Kuwema and Hard Bones lying on the ground, and helped the two people up with the rabbit mouth, only to see Kui Ma's fairly handsome face has completely turned into a rotten eggplant. I'm afraid it's the same as I was a few days ago. As for the hard bones, the scars on his face are not many, but his left arm has been completely drooped. Shi Xiong was shocked and quickly untied his hard bones, and found that his left arm did not suffer from redness and swelling. Slightly relieved, at least it's not a fracture, it should be a broken ring, dislocation. Strong bear, the wild fox brought people to take the cow away. They are too many people, and I can't stop the hard bones, Kui Ma said weakly. It's the late autumn season, and the temperature in the early morning is already relatively low, but the hard bones on the side are already sore and sweaty that they can't even speak. The taste of dislocation is very uncomfortable. It is no worse than the pain of a fracture. When he was a child, Shi Xiong had his arm broken because of his mischief. As a result, the pain was so painful that he cried, and he still remembers the taste. The scene before him made the fire in Shi Xiong's heart even greater. He stood up and nodded at Jiao Niu and Lynx, and then said, "Uncle, Lynx, you two first help the fast horse and the hard bones to Kabu, where Lu offers sacrifices. Let her heal." A flash of joy flashed across the faces of Jiao Niu and Bobcat, and they were about to walk over, but the 5 soldiers standing in front of them moved a bit and blocked them again. Shi Xiong frowned, walked over with a sullen face, and asked in a low voice, "Don't you see that 2 people here are injured? Who gave you the power to prevent them from being treated?" A sturdy man squinted his eyes and said, "These 2 people have offended us. We must show him some color. If they are not honest, we will beat him up." This guy looked familiar, but Shi Xiong didn't know what his name was. The other 4 men are like this. After all, Shi Xiong has not been in the Gaoshu tribe for long, and he has been busy with those things, and he has not had time to contact many people in the tribe. "Why did they both offend you?" "Hard bones are still children. I know how honest they are. How can they offend you?" "They just offended us anyway." The guy not only had a stiff mouth, but he applied for it, and even erected the bone spear in his hand. Shi Xiong's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are offending you so that you put such a heavy hand on the 2 children? They are members of the Gaoshu tribe, not the Chikasha." Haha. www.wuxiaspot.com. If it were Chikasha, we would have killed these 2 guys long ago. No wink, oh a punch. Another guy said, "Guardian, you are the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice. We respect your identity, but you'd better not intervene in this kind of thing. The grievances between the clansmen must be resolved with fists." Words made Shi Xiong hurt slightly. Does the grievances between the clansmen have to be resolved with fists? Okay. Before, the sound of a cold light flashed between Shi Xiong and the man, and with a clear and audible Z sound, the man's erected bone spear broke in 2 in the middle. The next moment, a huge fist appeared in front of the second man talking, which made him subconsciously raise his arms. But the fist just swayed in front of him. Within a few tenths of a second, the fist fell heavily on the man's stomach. "Just punch the guy like a boiled prawn." He covered his stomach with his hands and backed up a few steps before sitting down on the ground, sucking in a cold breath and couldn't say a word. A few guys next to him roared, and when he was about to start his hands, he saw Shi Xiong lift his long legs and swept across the shoulders of another guy. The guy immediately took his shoulders and retreated. At the next moment, there was another cold light flashing in the air, and the machete in Shi Xiong's hand slashed through the space again, and the next moment it stayed by the neck of the first man to speak. "Want to do it? Don't you think about whether the knife in my hand is fast or his neck is hard?" Shi Xiong is a head taller than all these guys, so condescendingly holding the knife against the guy. The neck is like a hunter holding a knife to force a small wild goat. Chapter 50, The Gift of Fulfilling One and number 039:S wishes. The other 2 guys who wanted to do it stopped their hands immediately. Their friend had a sharp steel knife on his neck, which made them very dangerous. Anyone can judge the sharpness of this steel knife. My friend's neck is not much weaker than a pheasant in front of this steel knife. But what they didn't know was that at this time, Shi Xiong's heart was full of joy. Since possessing the body of the silly head, apart from the great strength of this body and the strong talent for wound healing, Shi Xiong himself has not figured out any outstanding talents. Although some red deer and bison were hunted and killed before, they were all done with a heavy bone spear. The fundamental core strength still comes from the huge power of this body. Even though it was just a punch and kick and 2 swings, Shi Xiong clearly felt that this body was really great. Apart from anything else, it's just that this body can do the actions imagined in one's mind at any time, which is great enough. In other words, as long as you imagine some movements in your mind, the body can make almost the same movements immediately. Obviously, the coordination, flexibility, explosiveness, speed, and strength of this body are perfectly combined. Only in this way can they make the movements imagined in their minds. This is enough, that is to say, if you want to, then this body can make the same movements. Stone Zhong would not expect this body to be transformed into a monster like Hulk or Superman, which can violate the laws of physics at will, but it is absolutely fine to be a master fighter like Hawkeye or Batman. Of course, if you want to find out more talents of this body, or thoroughly master the talents of this body now, you still need to keep trying. Now Shi Xiong definitely doesn't have the time to ponder his body, and the situation in front of him needs to be solved quickly. My fist is big, my knife is sharper, and the person you beat me offended me. Does that mean I can beat you to teach you a little lesson? Shi Xiong looked at the look in front of him. The man with horrified eyes in the middle said faintly, "Also, I advise you two to stop reaching out, otherwise I don't mind cutting off your hands, and I'm pretty sure, because of you two, I'm in a blink of an eye. You can knock you down in time. You are not worthy to be called my opponents." Shi Xiong glanced over the 2 men with a murderous look, and the 2 men contracted their necks involuntarily. Shi Xiong put down the knife in his hand, and said disdainfully, "If it hadn't been for seeing that you were my tribe, your head should have left your body." "Come on, who on earth did Koima and Hardbone hit?" "Who did you instruct to do this?" "If you don't give me an answer that satisfies me now, I don't mind turning all 5 of you into sturdy looks." The cold words caused the cold sweat on the man's forehead to burst out. The knife on his neck just now made him clearly feel the smell of death. It was really uncomfortable. Even if his weapon was cut off by the guardian with a single knife, this was a great hatred, but at this time he had no intention of worrying about it at all. The substantive murderous aura that erupted from the guardian is too scary. So this man could only subconsciously turn his head to look at the wild fox who was standing in the distance holding the cow, and then lowered his head. Shi Xiong raised his eyes and looked at the wild fox standing tens of meters away, and said, "If you don't come back by yourself, do you still have to wait for me to invite you back? Also, bring my cow back to me. If you don't bring it back, I promise to put a bull nose ring on your nose." The wild fox didn't seem to have thought that the 5 middle-aged warriors hadn't blocked the silly head, and the situation in front of him made it clear to him that he might not be able to take the cow with him today, based on his knowledge of the silly head. This fool, once you get that kind of stubbornness, you really don't care about anything. So, the wild fox hesitated slightly, and then walked back with the cow. Perhaps it was during the process of pulling the bull that the cow felt the power of the nose ring for the first time, so when the wild fox took the rope back, the cow didn't dare to struggle anymore, obediently followed the wild fox back. "First, tie the ox to the stake, and then tell me honestly who instructed you to do this." After that, Shi Xiong turned his head and said to Kuema and Bone, "You two tell me, who was the first to do it to you just now? Was it a bogus wild fox?" The wild fox hesitated, but did not move. Instead, he said, "Silly head, this bull was ordered by the big man in the tribe to take us away, but the fast horse and the hard bones have to block us, and even attack us before we do it." "Counterattack?" Shi Xiong glanced at the wild fox, and his right arm holding a steel knife suddenly raised. The next moment, a cold glow broke through the air, and the machete flew over a distance of more than 20 meters in the air. With a sound, it plunged into the thick wooden stake used to tie the cow. Half of the 40-centimeter-long knife was submerged into the stake. Ukanshu www.ukanshu.com directly pierced the stake. It is as expected. Shi Xiong felt happy. This knife is actually an experiment. The punch and kick just now made him understand that his body has a magical talent. That is, the movements that he thought of in his mind. If he wants to, then his hands, feet and body can make the same movements. Is like the punch and kick just now, but in Shi Xiong's previous life, it was a very simple free kick. In order to exercise, the stone bear used to use iron in the gym in the past, and it was a relatively high-end gym. In addition to the most basic fitness equipment, there are also boxing training halls, karate training halls, and kickboxing training halls. Later, the coach said that practicing kickboxing can help you lose weight faster, so Shi Xiong spent more than 2,000 Dayang enrolled in a kickboxing class. As a result, he didn't go again after studying for a week. It was really painful for the students to punch or kick during training. Lao Tzu is here to lose weight, not to be abused. Although I didn't go to learn free fighting anymore, after all, I followed the instructor for a week. With Shi Xiong's IQ, I still remembered a lot of fighting moves made by the instructor when teaching advanced classes. The previous fighting moves Shi Xiong can only think about in his head. He simply can't make a movement similar to the high whip kick just now. But just now, he did it without hindrance. And this time, like throwing a flying knife, Shi Xiong imagined that the martial arts masters in the TV series cheekily throwing the knife, but he did not expect that he would actually do it even more exaggerated than the TV series. This is clearly the talent of whatever you want to do. Hurry up and tie the cows for me. Shi Xiong suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said calmly, "End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like." Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.